Chapter 1, After Divorce. In the small town outside the Northwest Military Region, a small hotel called the Military Family House, Enron was crowded behind the door of the room, and could not move if it wanted to move. Pressed down, the twists were a little overwhelmed. After all, she had the opportunity to speak and pushed Jean Lien's hand into her clothes all the way, panting, saying, Jean Lien, I have something to tell you, I'm here this time. Jean Lien's lips pressed back another way. His strength was surprisingly large. He said that when he pressed on Enron couldn't move. His emotions were exaggerated, and his body was trembling gently. The muscles in the military uniform are just like the power that has been stored for a long time. The exposed skin is like a big soldering iron, and it is hot everywhere. At this moment, he unbuttoned Enron's pants, closed his eyes slightly, and his lips contained Enron's lips, and said, Call her husband. Old man, husband, I have something to tell you. Enron is really shy and anxious, can't beat and can't run and can't run. People pulled her a serious marriage certificate. This bed or something is really an obligation that must be fulfilled between husband and wife. Lien is going to do it now. What reason does she refuse? Yes, but the point is, she ran here thousands of miles, ready to divorce Jean Lien. Don't say anything, wait until your husband loves you enough. Jean Lien blocked Enron's lips again, reached into her pants with her hands, grabbed her ass, held it up, and went straight to bed. The double bed was in a mess, the man was lying on the bed lamely, the backbone was strong, the skin was tanned, and there were many new and old scars. The latest wound was about the scapula, which was almost completely healed. Gun holes. Enron was wrapped in a large towel, sitting on the toilet, her head bowed, her hair cluttered on both sides of her cheeks, and her white chest. Her mood was so annoyed at this moment that she couldn't wait to hit her against the wall. Come on! I don't know if I came from Xiangcheng, Central China to this northwest, to come to divorce Jean Lien, or to go to bed with him. Obviously, before she came, she had made up her mind. She and Jean Lien were completely from two worlds. She only wanted a warm little family, and she had a promising class. She waited for her husband to go home every day. A child, holding hands, grows older and more dependent on each other every day. And warfare, for the country and the home, follow the typical path of blood burning and dedication to self. From blind date to marriage, the two have only met 3 times. After 1 year of marriage, warfare returns at the Mid-Autumn Festival. After a day in Xiangcheng, even the Spring Festival said that what tasks were performed abroad. She usually doesn't even say that Hanjian passed on the book. When she sends a text message, she often returns to her within 3 or 4 days. Even more, sometimes she can't get back a message for half a month. This is not like a living couple at all. This marriage is not a marriage that Enron wants. Then how did you get lost and promised to marry someone who had met through a blind date and met only 3 times? Probably because I feel that the warfare looks very man. And they are holding a blind date for the purpose of getting married. This is an instant hit with Enron. The two directly saved the process of dating and went straight to the theme of marriage. Facts have proved that the two people who have not run through the love period, but have run through each other, ultimately lack understanding and emotional foundation. Enron lowered his head sadly, raised his hands, and hugged his shoulders. There was a hot pain on the right shoulder. Tichin ran a sigh of relief. She tilted her head and looked at the fair skin, a purplish-red 5 fingerprints, that was pinched by the battle. Before coming, she notified Jean Lien 3 months in advance. As a result, the phone was called on his mobile phone, and the phone was turned off. She called his army again, and an officer there answered it. After returning from the mission, let Jean Lien call her back. The wait was 3 months. 3 months later, Jean Lien returned her phone number. That is, the day before yesterday, she put down the phone, and Enron quickly took the divorce agreement, took the plane, took the bus, and took the car for CMB. Shaxian in the northwest is to end this wrong marriage as soon as possible. As a result, the battle came last night, and he smoothly took a day off from the army. He thought that Enron wanted him to come and see him. He was so happy that when he entered the door of the hotel, a lot of Northwest specialties were put on the ground, and before Enron explained the intention, she blocked her behind the door, and after a few lifetimes, she bowed her head and kissed her. Then, the situation developed into what it is now, apparently coming to divorce, but went to bed. Oops oh oops, it hurt. In the early hours of the morning, a painful voice sounded, and she awakened Enron lying in bed from her dream. She returned to reality from her dream, opened her eyes suddenly, and suddenly awakened. Only to find that the time had passed 10 months. She has successfully divorced Jean Lien. The place where she is lying is the hospital, the obstetrics department on the 4th floor. This is a general ward. The cheapest type of triple room in the hospital. There are 3 beds in the ward. The cesarean section on the bed, lying on the bed and humming, pulled Enron back from reality to the reality, that is the 17-bed cesarean section. An 18-bed boy who lived in the middle of the berth looked very coquettish, and the family was more wealthy. He also invited a couple of months to wait beside him to greet his relatives and friends, and the 18-bed husband yesterday evening, I looked for doctors and nurses everywhere, and wanted to change to VIP special bed. The husband and mother-in-law of cesarean section were also accompanied by the 17-bed, but a few hours ago, I did not know what medicine the 17-bed husband and mother-in-law had taken wrongly. They both vomited and diarrhea, and fainted after a while. The other vomited and held the fainted one to see the internal medicine. So there are only 17 mothers who have a cesarean section left, and they hum in the bed. What about Enron? After the divorce, it was natural to lie alone on the bed. Given that there were too many relatives and friends in and out of the 18-bed, it was really inconvenient, and Enron had to close the curtain. She lay on the bed, reached into the pillow under her hand, and touched her cell phone. Thinking of the dream she had just dreamed, she unknowingly drew a series of numbers on her fingertips. When she came back, it was a phone call for war. Number. Chapter 2, Hita Hineng. Enron froze for a moment. In the dim curtain, the pale screen on her mobile phone reflected her pale and tired face. So she looked at her ex-husband's phone number, her long, white fingers, and pressed on the green dial button. After a while, she didn't press it, and she was still hesitating. Should she tell her ex-husband about her having a child? I still do not say anything, anyway, it does not matter anymore, so I will appear in front of him at this time. Is not he talking by himself? But in the end the child is a former husband, and the ex-husband also has the right to know, and whose account should the child go to in the future? Come to think of it, today is the 7th month of her divorce from her ex-husband. 10 months ago, she ran to the northwest 1,000 miles away, rolled up her last bed sheet with her ex-husband, and gathered up the courage to propose a divorce. A violent, frightened and furious quarreled with her, angrily held her in a troop car, took her to the plane, and personally packed her with a large number of northwestern souvenirs kicked back to Xiangcheng. In the following days, Jean Lien's phone call made her work more diligently, but she couldn't hear her about divorce. When Enron mentioned divorce, Jean Lien exploded in place at the end of the phone, and Enron was also in axis. She decided to divorce, so she didn't want to continue the life like a mud. So each time Jean Lien called back, or when she called, Enron was talking to Jean Lien about divorce. This Jean Lien is also a bad-tempered man, who looks so handsome and can give it to him every month. Enron also had a lot of money, and Enron didn't understand it. On his condition, it was okay to divorce and marry a tender model net red or whatever, and even raising a small 3 to 4 was completely out of the question. Why would he talk to her? A woman with ordinary looks and unskilled skills is consumed. Her ho to ho can. So Enron tangled with her ex-husband for another 3 months. After 3 months of quarreling, she divorced the marriage. Then, before she was excited for 2 days to recover single, she found out she was pregnant. It's been 3 months. When she was divorcing her ex-husband at that time, she had already said all the hard words. Whatever she would rather go out of the house, she had to divorce her. What personality was incompatible with each other? Whatever it is, you just have no choice but to seek him out. In fact, this is not for any reason at all. No matter what she says, the ex-husband is not willing to divorce. He is a soldier. He disagrees. Enron's unilateral divorce is not valid. Later, Enron couldn't hold himself up. In the last call with her ex-husband, she cried and said that she only wanted to have a home, a man who shouted to her every day, and had a child to worry about. She wanted to have a high fever in the middle of the night. Her husband was able to go to the hospital with her unconscious on her back, and she almost died like this at home, without anyone knowing it. No one knew that she knew that the battle was good and good, really good, not bad for salary it's tall, but the things she wants, the warfare can't give her, she can't. Jean-Lien was silent on the phone for a long time, and finally hung up the phone without saying a word, and then the 3-month battle for divorce suddenly ended. In 2 days, Jean-Lien signed the divorce agreement came to her. Chapter 3, Error. Is getting divorced the same as getting a divorce agreement? I don't know if this military marriage is different from ordinary people's divorce procedures. Do I need to go through other procedures? Enron didn't think so much. At that time, I just thought that the two had no emotional basis. The ex-husband was a soldier again. He didn't stay home all year round. This was an outright mistake for Enron, who had longed for a home since childhood. She is glad to be single again. Then one day after she released herself, she found that she was pregnant, and she called in horror to the troops of Jean-Lien. The teammates of Jean-Lien picked it up. Before Enron began to talk about pregnancy, his teammates said that Jean-Lien went abroad. Peacekeeping went, and Enron hung up the phone at that time, and never contacted Jean-Lien ever since. Of course, Jean-Lien hasn't called her. I'm afraid I don't want to have any contact with her anymore. So I always wanted to have a child, but Enron, who had exhausted all the ruthlessness, decided to give birth to the child without any consideration. The entire pregnancy period was passed by Enron silently, and the child was born at full term and delivered. She has already come over the most painful life and death of Shun delivery. Now that she is looking for warfare, what can he do for her? Forget it, the child is the flesh that fell from her. She has divorced Jean-Lien for more than half a year. Maybe someone else has found another flower in the army. At this time, she appeared in the Jean-Lien world with a child. Here, perhaps not the hope of war. She still shouldn't run out and jump in front of the battle to destroy the happiness of others. Thinking like this, Enron put the phone back to the bed, turned over hard, and the lower body was exposed with a turbulent flow. Enron sighed, looking at the maternity bag stacked on the bed by his feet, and was very tired. Outside the curtain, the TV on the wall was broadcasting the news. The male anchor was calling on the public not to leave their homes and go to the streets alone, as if a mob appeared on the street and the situation was not very stable. Yan Ran yawned, tilted his head, and looked at the crib that was empty by the bed. I don't know if this hospital is for making money, or the flu virus has been rampant recently. The entire obstetric baby has symptoms of cold and fever. Many mothers are also dizzy, and they are anxious to chase the doctors ask if you can breastfeed. The doctor is too busy to die. Where is the time to deal with these mothers' families? The neonatal department is crowded with countless people. Although you can't see the baby inside, but standing outside, at least you are your grandparents' loved ones. Enron didn't have such a good life. There were a lot of family members worrying about herself and her children. So she looked at the other two women in the ward and sometimes was very envious. She grew up eating hundreds of meals from a young age. There are not half of the reliable relatives available, especially after the divorce with Jean Lien, and those relatives are old and dead. My friends also have their own lives. It is not possible to stay in the hospital for a long time to help her. So everything depends on Enron alone. She has made plans for herself and her children's future. After graduating from college, she worked for 2 years, saved 10,000 yuan, and married his blind date. The house and car were bought by him. After he was settled, Enron could look into the bag with an aggressive look. Chapter 4, Ill Talk About Future Things. After the divorce, none of these warfare was recovered, and no explanation was given to the house cars, so Enron was still alive and confused. When the warfare was about to be recovered, she immediately moved away. I was also very embarrassed by Enron. I didn't know when Jean Lien still quietly sent her 100,000 yuan on her bank card. What does this mean? Enron didn't know. She could not contact Jean Lien. She thought that the 100,000 yuan was given to her as alimony or breakup fee. In addition to the living expenses that Jean Lien used to give her automatic bank transfers every month, in the year of her marriage, as long as she contacted her with WeChat, Jean Lien gave her thousands of red packets, as if they were in red packets. It's either money or a string of numbers. The unused sum of these 7 or 8 is added up to 200,000 or 300,000 in her hands. An ordinary soldier who has so much money. Enron has no clue from her small head. Her reading performance has been in the middle and lower reaches, and she has graduated from the military academy. If she is not a soldier, then her college entrance exam score may not be able to go directly to Peking University Tsinghua University. By Jade Bird. So Enron did not pass the exam, so she mixed up with a technical school to graduate. She couldn't think of the complicated ones, she just thought that she was going to get married. In the marriage relationship, she didn't do anything except not returning home. Whatever violated the relationship between husband and wife, he had to pay back the money he gave her. The money had to be returned to Jean Lien, but Jean Lien could not be contacted. WeChat QQ, a new generation communication tool, had suspected that she had been pushing hard all day during the last 3 months of the fight with Jean Lien. Divorce was annoying, she had been blacked out long ago, so she had the intention to pay back the money, but there was no way to pay it back. So this is a temporary requisition of this money. I will talk about the future. Now that Enron has levied the money from the war, she is not short of money. She thinks that this hospital has a monthly institution. It costs 10,000 yuan a month, which is very expensive. Have the money to grow up with her daughter? So Enron thought, would like to invite Yue Zhang home from the hospital and help her pass this month. Then, in the future, when she takes the child, she can make some TB stores or micro-business and so on. She will not be able to do so until her child is in kindergarten. Thinking about the future like this, because the child is not around, and the empty heart is filled unknowingly, Enron cheers herself up. To cheer up, to work hard, she must be a strong mother, she must be one good mother's. 16 bed, what is the name? A little nurse dragged the epilogue and slowly asked this sentence, and slantedly opened the curtain by Enron's bed. Enron lay on the bed, turned around, and wanted to talk back, but suddenly faced the little nurse's face exposed by the mask, startled, and saw that the skin of the little nurse who was not covered by the mask was grey. The color, the forehead is also covered with green bars, which are faintly agitated. How to say, this little nurse looks like a dead person. What happened to this little nurse? Enron was so frightened that he didn't speak for a while, and the little nurse stood beside Enron's bed, his eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of grey, and he stared straight at Enron. There was no focus, some were stunned, like they didn't know what they were doing here. Chapter 5, Must apply for referral. Are you okay? Enron sat up with his hands up, and the little nurse slowly gathered light in his eyes, condensed on Enron's neck, and then shook his body. A little hesitation and struggle appeared on his face, and then it seemed as if nothing had happened. A bottle of potion in his hand was directly hung on a hanging water rack beside Enron's bed. Then, the little nurse was even more surprised that she didn't say a word and did not give Enron an injection, just slowly, turned around, as if a silent movie was pressed in slow motion. Along the way a slit was pulled open, and it slowly wobbled out. This little nurse must be seriously ill. Enron sitting on the bed, frowning, feeling a little uncomfortable in my heart. Why did this little nurse have such a serious illness? But no doctor or nurse could see it. I asked the little nurse to force a sickness into the post. What should I do if the baby is infected? With such an idea, Enron would get up anyway to see what medicine the little nurse had hanged to herself. She could just hang the water, otherwise she would give her baby from the neonatal department. Daughter feeding? So Enron got out of bed with difficulty, the side cut wound was pulled, and Enron grinned. She bent down, supported the head of the bed with her hands, and took a deep breath. Then she stood upright and stretched out her hand. The potion bottle on the shelf was taken down, ready to see what medicine was on it. What medicine is tincture? Enron didn't see it, because some unknown liquid was pasted on the potion bottle, such as the yellow sputum spit by a coughing patient, and it got on Enron's hand. She quickly threw the bottle of medicine into the trash can and turned around. I went to the toilet to wash my hands. This is a particularly painful thing for a person who has just given birth to a child for less than 10 hours. It has not been cut sideways, and the person who has not conceived the child will not understand. After the child is born, it will be in the abdominal cavity. As soon as the pressure on his body was reduced and Enron stood upright, he just felt that his internal organs were falling down. She couldn't take it anymore, so she could only bend down and lift her still belly up. Fang felt better, but she felt terribly, even breathing. Although moving from the delivery bed to the toilet, there were only a few steps, but Enron felt that it was a long way, and she finally entered the toilet. She turned on the faucet, washed the yellow sputum on her hand, washed it, and put it in the faucet. The water flowing out turned into yellow slowly, and the yellower the deeper the flow. Enron stood beside the sink, glaring unbelievably into the black water, and bowed her head. The anger in her heart slowly rose. Although the charges of this hospital are not the highest, but they are not cheap. When Enron compared with all the hospitals in Xiangcheng during pregnancy, they chose this hospital in Xiangcheng Star District because the obstetrics and gynecology department of this hospital is the best in all the hospitals in Xiangcheng. The best dialysis paralysis technique is for egg use. The environment and the attitude of medical staff are not good, which lowers the overall level of this hospital. She decided to tell the doctor to apply for a transfer after a while, thinking about her daughter who was still in the neonatal department. Enron felt that the environment and nurse quality of this hospital may not be able to take good care of her daughter in the neonatal department. She must be to apply for referral. Chapter 6, like entering the morgue. Enduring the black water, Enron barely washed the yellow sputum on her hands. She gritted her teeth, and with the anger in her heart, she stepped out of the door of the room and went to the doctor's office to talk to the doctor. The transfer to the hospital. Along the way, Enron looked at the nurses walking up and down the corridor. The walking steps seemed to be floating, and it was even more disturbing that each nurse had a deadly temperament like a walking dead, that was dressed in pink. In the nurses' clothes, it was as if a rotten body was wrapped around, and the foreheads of the masks were exposed. All of them were exposed with blue tendons, and their eyes were loose, which made people feel terrible. Enron was leaning against the wall, covering his stomach, holding on to the handrail near the wall and slowly walking forward, walking and seeing the doctor's office far away. At this time it was at night. There were few doctors on duty, but one by one. Sitting idly in his chair, not working or looking at the medical records, just sitting idly, as if he didn't know what he was about to do. Suddenly, the whole obstetrics and gynecology department seemed to enter the morgue. The atmosphere feels weird for no reason. Ayn Rand's heart suddenly jumped wildly. She pressed her face against the cold wall and walked towards the doctor's office step by step. She wore confinement shoes on her feet, soft and warm, almost silent. Then Ayn Rand saw it clearly and was completely frightened. Every doctor's forehead was like a nurse outside with violent blue muscles. The doctor did not need to wear a mask in the doctor's office, so Ayn Rand saw those doctors. As if all of them got some uncontrolled illness, drooling from the corner of the mouth. It's not exactly saliva, it's not clear. The saliva is clear, but the mouth of these doctors is a kind of yellow viscous liquid, as if it's like the yellow mouthful on the Ayn Rand pill bottle. Sputum. The instinct of higher intelligence creatures to avoid evil and evil, taught Ayn Rand to turn abruptly, regardless of the side cut, and the uncomfortable feeling of being hung by the internal organs. She supported the wall with one hand and covered it with one hand. She was filled with a vicious stomach, and how fast and how quickly she could move without affecting the side-cut wound. She hurried to the passenger elevator. She wanted to go to the neonatal department on the 5th floor. She wants to inform the doctors and nurses of the neonatal department that the obstetrics and gynecology department needs help, and then see if she can think of a way to steal her daughter from the neonatal department. This hospital can't stay, it can't be a moment. A thunder blast in the sky broke the night. The heavy rain suddenly poured down like this. The elevator could not wait for a long time. Ayn Rand couldn't wait for the elevator. With all its strength, it entered the safety staircase to climb the building, just one floor, and climbed her. At least 20 minutes, sweating out of a body, as if being rained again, the more miserable, the more miserable. As a result, I finally managed to climb to the entrance of the safety staircase on the 5th floor. Looking across the clear glass on the door, the neonatal department came back and forth, all of them, not to mention, everyone's forehead was even all blue. There are yellow sputum in the mouth and uncontrollable muscles. These people include doctors and nurses, as well as those family members who are waiting outside the blue light room, neonatal intensive care unit, and the general neonatal ward. Without exception, these people are either bad or have some infectious diseases. What happened? Chapter 7, 17 Beds. Ayn Rand clenched the door handle on the safety door, bent over, panting heavily, and she was soaked in sweat with her forehead wrapped in a scarf. Because of excessive movement, there was a small circle around her breast at 2 points. The traces of milk smudges, it seems that she has started to milk, but the child is not around, and her chest is sore. This pain clarified the pain of Ayn Rand's 6 gods. She thought that it would not work, and she could not be decadent. No matter what evil this hospital suffered, her daughter was still in the neonatology department. In any case, she had to take her daughter. Can only bring this hospital out. The flesh falling off her body gave Ayn Rand a little bit of perseverance. She turned her eyes to think about it and decided to go downstairs to the ward first and call Jean Lien. Although Jean Lien served as a soldier in the Northwest, he was born and raised in Hunan. City man, no matter how to say, it is still a little related in Xiangcheng, judging from his purchase of a house and car. A few phone calls can complete all the procedures. At a critical moment, it still has to rely on warfare. Ayn Rand wanted him to think of a way to help and see if she could get her daughter out of the neonatal department first. At this time, she still cares about the harsh words she once released, saying that no matter how desperate she is, she won't seek warfare and the like, and her daughter matters most. So Ayn Rand braced herself to the limit and fell down the stairs. It took almost 30 minutes to return to the 16 bed in her ward, and she found the mobile phone under the pillow. This time, she did not hesitate to call out of the phone number of the war. Beep beep beep. The phone rang for a minute, no one answered, and Ayn Rand was anxious to go to the room. This man is always this way, at every critical moment when she needs him, he is not there, he is not there. His heart is only his country, his troops, his brother. Hanging up the phone, while Enron was standing on the bed. When Lu Shen was out of control, her curtain was opened at a corner. The 17-part woman who had a cesarean section also wore a scarf on her head, frowning at Enron, and had tears in her eyes. Said weakly, "Hello, can you bother you with one thing? Me, I have a terrible pain, can you call me my husband?" Her husband and her mother-in-law have been going for a few hours, and it is already 10 o'clock in the morning, but it seems that the sky has not yet turned on, there are no signs of light at all, and bed 17 is in a hurry. She is now painful and hungry. I just wanted to get her husband and mother-in-law back. Enran hesitated for a moment. She wanted to talk to the 17-bedder. There were people with strange blue tendons on her face everywhere. It is estimated that this hospital was in trouble. At this time, the 17-bed husband and mother-in-law were not seen. I have to come back. I don't know why, Enron just feels that there is little hope of returning. But she still nodded and agreed to make a call for bed 17. Enron was a little dark thinking, maybe her husband's mother-in-law didn't have anything at all, just do not want to wait for the mother? Anyway, there are now 3 mothers in this ward. If a man can take the lead and think of a way to get the children out, it is good. So Enron temporarily pressed her anxiety. With the phone number readout on bed 17, her finger flipped on the mobile phone, and a series of numbers were dialed out, but the prompt was a busy tone. Chapter 8, Let me order a takeaway. Toot, toot, toot. I called a few times, and all the prompts were busy. Enron rushed to bed 17 and shook the mobile phone. Busy, it is estimated that the signal is not good, or what your husband and mother-in-law are doing to check what you want to eat. I will help you order a takeaway. She thinks there is still takeaway at this time, although it is dark, but takeaway is available at any time, no matter what time. If the takeaway brother comes, it proves that it is not difficult to get in and out of this hospital, and things are certainly not as severe as she thought. Then Enron asked the takeaway brother to go to the first-floor guidance desk to find a doctor. There may be a wide range of diseases or other problems in the building, and the baby must be transferred in time. If the takeaway brother cannot enter, does it mean that the hospital is blocked? To be honest, it is not that Enron is too gloomy, but that if there is any large-scale infectious disease in the society, in order to prevent the disease from spreading, it is normal logic to block the source of the disease for the first time. So if the takeout brother can't get in, it means that Enron can't go out anyway. Maybe this kind of tentative method is a bit naive, but she is trying to find a way that is within her ability. In the field of scientific cognition that she can understand in her life, Enron is doing everything possible to communicate with the outside world. Thank you, I have something to eat. See if I can move in bed, can you help me, take the bread out of the bedside table drawer. The tears in the eyes of the 17th bed finally fell down. The woman gave birth to a child and turned around in the ghost gate, let alone she was a cesarean section. The abdomen was cut into 8 layers, so a long knife edge made her anesthetic. Waking up, it was really painful, but her husband and mother-in-law disappeared at this time. Enron is also suffering from pain all over her body, but she is giving birth. Before deciding to give birth, she also checked the information on the internet. The baby was born and walking away was conducive to the discharge of vicious leaks, but she also walked too much today. Completely exceeded the amount of exercise that a normal mother should have. The evil dew of the lower body flowed like a faucet, and when it was moved, it collapsed a big cricket, slimy, making it very uncomfortable. When she returned to the ward, she stood on her own bed and did not dare to lie down. She was afraid that she would not be able to get up again. However, she looked at bed 17 and was really pathetic and polite. She asked Enron to take the bread in the drawer and thank her, so it didn't matter that Enron helped her. She moved around her bed, opened the bedside table drawer of the 17 bed, looked inside, and suddenly felt strange. She tilted her head to the 17 bed sulking and asked, "Why do you buy so much bread? And chocolate, sugar balls, wow, and crispy noodles here. When I was born, I really had no energy. These were bought by my husband and my mother-in-law. They let me try to eat as much as I can, and then gave birth to the child in a blast. As a result, I ate nothing. Go straight forward. The painful face on the bed of 17 seemed to think of the child cut out from the stomach, and finally there was a faint smile. She lay on the bed, raised her hand, and took the bread bag that Enron had handed over. Open the package and take out an oval shape with floss bread on it and hand it back to Enron. I think you've been alone, you haven't eaten anything since last night, so eat with me. Chapter 9, 18 Beds. Enron subconsciously wanted to refuse. Her back was a little itchy, which made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't know if she washed her hands with the black water. She scratched it a few times and felt that she was not hungry. But after thinking about it, it seems that she did indeed have a child from yesterday. Until now, she has not eaten a bit of food. Strange, why doesn't she feel hungry? She felt that she was already too hungry. This would not work. Do NT starve the milk you just gave back? Enron said thank you to bed 17 and took the bread in bed 17 while eating. Think of walking to his bed. Hello, can you help me ring the bell? At this time in bed 18, there was no one around me. Those relatives and friends were finally gone. Her husband, mother-in-law and a few aunts seemed to be just now, but it seemed that they had gone to the doctor to quarrel. She said that she was going to transfer to a VIP room, but the doctor couldn't do it for her. Everyone went to the doctor's office to block the doctor. So the 18-bed words were said to Enron. Actually, she didn't want to see a doctor, she just wanted to ring a bell to let her come to see her. You can press it yourself. Enron turned back to scan the woman lying in bed, about 24 or 25 years old. She was 1 or 2 years older than Enron. She graduated from technical school at the age of 20 and married her ex-husband after working for more than a year. The marriage relationship was maintained for 1 year, and I tossed another 10 months to give birth to the child. Now I am only 23 years old and not yet full. So Enron didn't quite understand. This age is about the same, and they are all born in labor. How can 18-bed lie on the bed, just like a cesarean section? She directed her. I can't get up. The 18-bed, lying on the bed, looked at Enron pitifully, with tears in his eyes, and a little bit of pleading to Enron, my evil dew flows, it's terrible, it's hard, you help me. Enron ignored her. Xiao Didi was like who had never had a child. In fact, Enron was really annoying at the moment. She wondered how she could get her daughter out of the neonatal department. She helped 17 beds to get a bread, but she was used to the 18 beds without any thought. Going back to her curtain, Enron took out her mobile phone, while eating bread, thinking about who else can be contacted at this moment, who will have so much energy, get her daughter from the neonatal department come out. The curtain was raised again, and there was some cold sweat on the bed, bearing the pain on the edge of the knife, and said to Enron, hey, let's talk, or I'll be uncomfortable. What's your name? Enron. Enron bowed his head, stared at the list on the mobile phone, flipped the phone number inside, and stood by his bed, with a loose hair tucked behind his head. It's greasy. It looks like there are as many Wolverines as there are wolves. My name is Who Frame. You can call me Frame. You look much younger than me. Are you 20 years old? It's full, I'm almost 23. Oh, I thought you were born unmarried at first, you look so young, why did NT your husband come with you? Who Frame of cesarean section, it seems that it really hurts a lot, always looking for a topic to talk to Enron. Enron was impatient, the phone book did not turn over, looked directly at Who Frame lying on the bed, said. Sister Frame, I think this hospital is evil. I'll go out and check the situation first, and you'll sleep. Chapter 10, Why is it still not bright? Anyway, Enron carried the phone back into his pocket, with anxiety in his heart, propped up the bed frame, and moved to the door step by step. Hu Frame was still asking her what was wrong, and there was the coquettish 18 beds. Even lying alone on the bed, he burst into tears. Enron was so annoyed that he ignored the Hu Frame and the 18 bed, but just secretly opened the door, stood inside the door, and looked at the quiet corridor. Those who came back and forth in the corridor became more stiff, and the fear in Enron's heart to make her uneasy and not go out to see what happened. She could not stay in this room alone. Speaking of it, you find that it is already 11 a.m., why is it still not bright? There was a sound behind, who was talking. She was lying on the bed, frowning, and turned to look out the window. It was still a rainy night, like a late night. The street lights with solar energy and windmills were automatically controlled by the computer. At 6 o'clock in the morning, all the street lights went out. At this time, looking out of the ward, all of them were dark pieces, and there was no thick black fingers. What? A scream came from the 18th bed, like a sharp claw, tightening Enron's heart. She turned back angrily, glanced at the 18th bed, and saw that the 18th bed sat up with strength now. She was complaining to Hu Frames lying in bed. Don't tell me, you just said that. I found out that it's terrible, 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 I want to call my husband. After saying that, she got out of bed by herself, pulled out her latest orange cell phone from the bedside table, and called her husband. Enron said something to the 18 beds, turned his head, followed the door that opened, and continued to observe from the gap. The people in the corridor still walked back and forth, as if a corpse was like walking. Enron shook his heart, opened the door of the room, covered his stomach, slowly went out wearing confinement shoes, and then thought he was still uneasy, and backhand closed the door of the ward to Hu Frame and the 18 bed Jiao Jiao. She carefully watched the people walking back and forth. These people, for example, when she went out to watch, the expression of that shiver was more serious. The blue tendons on her head had completely bulged. While walking, her mouth was flowing yellow sputum. The lights on the corridor were lit one by one, so that the entire corridor was filled with a weird smell. Enron didn't know the seriousness of the problem. She lowered her head and walked forward silently. She planned go to the elevator, go to the neonatal department, and find a way to find her daughter. Walking along, step by step, slowly moving forward, passing a section of the corridor that was turned off, and in the open door, a sound of chewing food sounded in this quiet corridor, like a large animal was eating bones, one after another, making Enron stand still. She widened her eyes in horror, the sweat on the side of the hair sticking to her face, and then slowly turned her head to see a man lying on a woman's body in a ward without lights, like a beast. Bite this woman. Yes, bite. The woman on the bed was still alive, as if she had just given birth to a child. Her head was wrapped in a scarf, her throat had been bitten, and she was swollen with blood. She was desperately kicking the man who was chewing her food. The voice came from her. Chapter 11, Little Fox Fairy. Enron was scared by two tremors. A sudden burst of urination hit her, she was choked, and hadn't waited for her to react. Beside her, she was hit by someone, and Enron, who was not very stable, was hit suddenly. Falling to the ground, the phone in his pocket fell out and slipped away. Enron gritted her teeth and did not say anything, or at this moment, she wanted to make a sound, and she couldn't make any sound. She was completely frightened, Enron, with hair stuck on her pale face, looked up, and saw the person who hit her had a low profile looking for something. Her eyes were grey, and two long fangs were exposed at the corners of her mouth. "And, is this human?" On the spot, Enron just fainted, and couldn't hold back his urine. He was scared and didn't have time to scream. Then he saw the person who hit her. He turned his head and shook it straight into the ward. The men on the bed bent down together and started to bite the woman on the bed with yellow sputum and fangs. The bright red blood flowed down the bed sheet, and blew on the ground. After a while, the woman on the bed broke her breath, leaving the two men lying on her body, eating her flesh and blood and her internal organs. Nausea Enran didn't hold back. He looked at the scene with a gag in her heart, but her vomiting sound came out, and the two men eating women on the bed turned their heads, as if covered. A layer of grey eyes, staring at Enran creepily. The ward was very dark, as if there was only this maternal. I don't know why the light was not turned on, but this did not prevent Enran from seeing the blood on the mouths of the two men. The sharp teeth grew like wild animals on the corners of his mouth. Then, they moved, crawled down from the bed, and walked towards Enran directly. Enran covered her mouth, shook her head, and tears of terror appeared in her eyes. Sitting on the ground, unbelievably shrinking back, she wanted to vomit, did not vomit, wanted to cry, did not dare to cry, she never experienced after such fear. Then she looked up and looked around, and everyone who came and went after him seemed to have no sense of this scene, still wandering aimlessly. The two men were shaking slowly, as if they were locking their targets, and they were always searching in the direction of Enran, but they were not too far away from Enran in total. Soon they walked out of the door and were about to find Enran here. Coming. Become a little fox fairy, and the sound of footsteps in the moonlight. I put my hand on your shoulder. I hope you don't panic because of me. At a critical moment, Enran dropped the mobile phone on the ground and suddenly rang out 2 meters away. The song of Little Fox Fairy was so loud that it could ring the entire corridor, and some people around Enran stopped and paused, standing still without motion. More importantly, the two men who had eaten the mother paused in front of Enran, turned their heads, turned around, and went to the mobile phone that sang Little Fox Fairy. Those who paused also this time it moved, then shook it, turned around, and walked towards the mobile phone singing Little Fox Fairy. As soon as they turned their backs, Enran saw the fangs in their mouths. These are all monsters, monsters! Her hands and feet trembling hurriedly stood up, rubbing a few people around her lightly, stood far away, then glanced at the mobile phone on the ground, and called her to fight. Thank you. You finally came in handy. Chapter 12, What about her daughter? Enran was in his heart, thanking Jean-Lien for his 8 ancestors, and hurriedly pressed against the wall, hurriedly trot back to his ward. The lochia flowed under her, too many pants-type sanitary napkins could not be carried, and the red blood dripped down Enran's trouser tube, and her blood was stained all over her lower body. On the other side, when she ran to the door of her ward, she almost fainted. From the end of the corridor, listening to the Little Fox Fairy, she was still singing, and Jean-Lien had been calling her again. Then again. Enran sat at the door of her ward, tears in her eyes, and looked at the monster on the other side of the corridor, gathered next to her cell phone, one after the other, and surrounded them. After a while, a large group stood around her cell phone. The monster was looking for prey with a sound. Why is it like this? What is wrong in this world? Enran curled up at the door of her ward, crying helplessly. She used to hope that Jean-Lien could call her in countless days and nights, no matter how late, she would definitely answer. But now, does she dare to answer Jean-Lien's phone? Dare? She didn't dare. She was just an ordinary woman. She had nothing, no muscles as hard as steel and no magical skills. What should she do now? Apart from a dead end, what else can I do? She has a daughter. She is dead. What should her daughter do? Enran wiped away the endless tears, because she sweated a lot and did not wash her face, so that the dirt on her face was a thick layer. The tears came out first class, and Enran wiped it away again, letting her rectify Zhang's face looked garish. She suddenly thought about calling the police. This hospital was evil, many people became demented, and many others were obviously evolving. This is no longer a scene where a small citizen like her can hold. Now, she must get help from the police. Only the police can get her daughter out of the newborn department. Alas, yes, Enron felt that those people with yellow sputum in their mouths were evolving. The so-called evolution, about the beginning, was like the little nurse, with a little consciousness, mechanized, repeating the work at hand, and then developed to the end. The ones that have tooth decay are evolution, they will eat human. Looking at this corridor, people who express dementia back and forth will eventually evolve into cannibalizing monsters. Enron doesn't know, I'm not sure. The only thing she can determine now is that she must call the police. Thinking of calling the police, she quickly held up her strength, got up and twisted the door behind her back, crawled in and went in. The 17 bed inside was still in bed, the 18 bed was on the phone, walking back and forth, very anxious look. Why not answer? Why not answer? The 18 bed Jiao yelled angrily. Looking back, looking at the pants on Enron's lower body, all crawled back with blood, and 18 bed screamed in fuss. Oops, what happened to you? All right. On the 17 bed Who frame, she couldn't move in bed, but she also saw the look of the wolf howling on the ground, and barely moved her body. Call of fangs and grin. Chapter 13, She is not evil. Don't call it. Enron lifted his head weakly, closed the door, glanced at the frightened 18 bed coquettish girl, tilted her head, and said to 17 frame Who frame, where is your cell phone? Please call me, call the police. I've called the police. The 18 joy girl frowned, anxious, and started banging her cell phone again, watching the Enron lying on the floor while calling. I called the police and said my husband was missing, so the police called it's been busy. These policemen in China are all eating rice, hey. My husband was gone for 2 hours, so the girl called the police and asked the police to find her husband. Enron rose silently from the ground, laboriously dragged the delivery bag on the bedside, and found a new pant-shaped sanitary napkin. The IQ of the 17 bed Who frame was at least better than the IQ of the 18 bed delicate girl. Although he couldn't move in bed, he looked at Enron anxiously and asked, "What's wrong with you? Why should you call the police? My phone is in the drawer." Enron shook her head. Now she no longer needs a cell phone. Now that the 18 bed has been alarmed, and she is still holding the alarm phone, she will have to make a phone call with Who frame, which will not help. I see the outside. Enron took a deep breath and recalled what he saw just now. The disgusting scene suppressed the fear in his heart, and tried to use a smooth tone to Who frame, someone is eating. Ah! Who framed his head slightly with aggression on his face, and pulled his wound back, unable to put his head back on the pillow. The coquettish the 18 bed can't help but it is a chuckling smile. She is still dialing the alarm phone and her husband's phone number repeatedly, and slightly dismissively glances at Enron. If you think Enron is a civilian, there will be this kind of madman's speech is just as good as Enron's identity. Enron didn't force the 17th and 18th beds to believe what she said, but only glanced at the 18th Jiao girl, shivered into the toilet, took the lochia, and received the fullness of the panties. I changed the sanitary napkin. Instead of washing his hands with those dark waters, Enron found a toilet paper, wiped the blood on his hands, then propped up on the bath table, looked at himself like a ghost in the mirror, raised his bangs on his forehead, looked very carefully. Fortunately, she was not evil. Distant, little fox fairy, which has been singing in the corridor, finally came to an end when the mobile phone was out of power. The mobile phone screen was dark and surrounded by it. Those monsters that had evolved successfully lost. After reaching the goal, they started slowly scattered, some went to the end of the corridor, and some came to this ward in Enron. And in that distant, far northwest, a brightly lit auditorium, there are several tables, red banners hanging on the wall, "Farewell Comrade Glorious Retirement." There is a room under the banner. Wearing camouflage clothes, aimlessly zombies, on the ground, there were still several skeletons that were almost eaten, and meals and dishes on the table, without moving a few mouthfuls, but red blood and yellow were flying everywhere. Sputum! Jean Lien was covered with blood, and his dangling hand was pinched into a fist, with red blood dripping on it, drop by drop, falling to the ground, and smudged into a stall. He was sitting on a bench in the kitchen. With one foot resting on the other knee, the other free hand was holding the mobile phone and dialing Enran's phone over and over again until Enran's phone was turned off by him. Chapter 14, My Ex-Wife. At the door of the kitchen, next to the door leading to the auditorium, 3 men were holding pots, pans and pots in their hands. They were guarding against death by the door, and they were afraid of an unguarded, letting those brothers in the auditorium rush in. Among the 3 men in camouflage clothes, one of them was handsome and looked like a soldier in his 20s. His name was Lu Xiaoju. He was a new recruit in the current team. Lu Xiaoju was hanging now. With blood on his face and a kitchen knife in his hand, he came to the front of Jean Lien, bowed his head, and asked helplessly and frustrated. "Lien brother, who are you calling?" "My ex-wife." He answered these 3 words very briefly and grabbed the phone and called Enran again and again. This time he reminded him of a short busy tone. Lu Xiaoju cried, a huge man, crying just like a bear whispered, I also called my girlfriend and my mother, she didn't answer them." Another 30-year-old man, about the same age as Jean Lien, looks like an instructor. The man named Luo Fifan wears a pair of glasses on his face. He heard the words, standing beside the door and frowning. Some disagree with Jean Lien, and Lu Xiaoju had a small difference at this time. "Lien, stop fighting, maybe Enran is all ready." "No." Jean Lien looked up fiercely. On the sharp features, there was a murderous look, and he emphasized, "She just called me. If she becomes a zombie, she will call me." From the military camp in the northwestern region, a large number of soldiers had diarrhea and fever, and they were in a state of weakness since last night. However, Jean Lien retired from the army last night, and Luo Fifan organized a farewell party for him. They still come. Because the body is mostly unwell, this farewell party is filled with joy, but there is not much joy in it. Of course, who is Jean Lien? No matter whether he is retired today or not, as long as there is such a strangeness in the air, he can detect it. It was just that the mutation was so sudden, all of them were his teammates who were facing each other day and night. The relationship was not brother-in-law but closer than brother-in-law. What he never expected was that after a thunderstorm, teammates could eat people. Phenomenon. Who was the first cannibalist? I can't remember who it is. Jean Lien went out with Luo Fifan to talk about the work arrangements after Jean Lien's resignation, but it turned out to be like this. It's too fast. He and Luo Fifan can also be regarded as quick reactions. From this world of purgatory last night, he has protected himself and several teammates who have not changed. In the end, some people are thinking about the old feelings and dare not treat these old days. The comrades in arms are killers. If one day, these comrades in arms can be cured? I can only retreat into the kitchen, and is still in a state of babbling. But one day has passed. Usually, what kind of team is a little bit windy, the whole district will know the situation, and it does not appear today. After fighting a few people, they waited in the kitchen for a day, and did not wait for rescue. So how many people did the battle have to take into account other things, such as the spread of the disease, not just their team, may have radiated to the entire military area? Or, the whole China country? If everyone in the world is sick, is there anything in Enran? Are their family and friends okay? Chapter 15, Speak Clearly. In a day, in fact, Jean Lien has not been able to adapt to such a sudden change, let alone the weak Enran. He missed a call from his ex-wife, and this has not been the case before, but this time, ever since, is it really close to the earth? Jean Lien pursed his lips and frowned, as if looking at his father and his enemies, and looking at the mobile phone in his hand. His mobile phone was out of signal. What should we do now? I think he lost his father in his early years, lost his mother in his youth, married like a wolf, and divorced 1 year later, it really counts. In this world, I am probably a former relative. How can I put it down? Lien, what shall we do now? A man with a southern accent, older than Jean Lien and Luo Fifan, seems to have a man of about 35, called Hualien Jin, known as an old cat. He is holding a telescope that he doesn't know where to get it. Next to the kitchen window, he told Jean Lien. Not only did our brigade become monsters, I think other brigades are also mysterious. Otherwise, how can we never get a response for the help signal we sent? The military area of the Northwest is vast, but the brigade where the war is located is a special service belonging to the entire military area. As a rule, except for him and the other 3 people, none of them is spared. Go there, but now nothing happens. They are remote and hard to access information from the outside world, so should they wait for rescue now, or think about other methods? Jean Lien held the old mobile phone in his hand, sitting on a stool, with 1 foot down from his knees, bending down, and looking at the screen of the mobile phone. Wife, those 2 words, which is the name of Enron in his mobile phone, he hadn't had time to change it back. Every time he read these 2 words, Jean Lien always got upset in his heart that day. When his ex-wife cried with him on the phone. She cried a little and broke down, crying and yelling at Jean Lien on the other side of the phone. She said, "You are always absent. When I need you, you are always away from me. Do I look like a husband? We have been married for a year, and in this year's marriage, I saw you for a total of 3 days. In the past 3 days, you are going to bed with me, except for going to bed or going to bed. What do I usually suffer from? 3 illnesses and 2 pains, where are you? If you lack a woman to go to bed, you do why marry me? You spend a little money and go out to find a chicken, that's more free and easy." In fact, Jean Lien never told and ran. In fact, he was the same as her. "I hope to have a home. When I want to go home, a woman is waiting for her. Then I have 2 children and my life is just like water." It was what he wanted. But at that time he was so angry that he just wanted to strangle Enron, and said nothing, but now he didn't know if he had time to talk to his ex-wife. "Get it out." Jean Lien grabbed the phone, threw the phone with no signal into his chest pocket, raised his head, and looked at the remaining 3 teammates, repeating it decisively. "Some things have to be made clear to my ex-wife, life and death, I have to speak in front of her. Anyway, he turned from the kitchen counter and started to pick up his weapons. Now the scene outside, it is estimated that these teammates can't be saved, and they can't be saved. There is no second way to go except to kill them. Chapter 16, all outlets are blocked. The remaining 3 teammates, who also have relatives at home, naturally cannot stay in the kitchen waiting for rescue. In fact, sometimes, when people are facing the critical moment of life and death, they will find that the most regrettable thing in the world is that I haven't said goodbye, and I haven't been with those who have been loved or loved. Say goodbye, didn't tell them, go all the way, didn't say, don't worry, I will be fine. Regardless of whether their loved ones are ill, they also want to go out and take a look. With these loved ones, tell what they have said and never said in their hearts. A purgatory, waiting for the war to train them to break out, and in the distant central China, Xiangcheng, the hospital in the Star area, stood safely in the bathroom, looked at himself in the mirror, and cheered himself over and over again. She has to be strong. Now the alarm is useless, and Jean Lien is far away in the northwest. It is impossible to fly back to save her and her daughter at once, but she can borrow a cell phone and call Jean Lien, apologize and say herself he gave birth to a daughter and didn't look at her face. The face of his own daughter always looked at it. Let Jean Lien figure out a way to get a few people to save his daughter. With such an idea, Enran's chaotic thoughts finally came to an idea. She hurried out of the bathroom and asked Hu Frame to borrow her mobile phone. As a result, she got the bathroom and leaned on the door to see that Hu Frame's cell phone signal was blank. Enran was completely dumbfounded. What should I do now? How to do? All outlets have been blocked and all survival opportunities have been extinguished one by one. What should Enran do? All of a sudden she had no strength. She slipped softly on the ground, looking at the wall in the bathroom, crying without tears. Is it only by myself? No one asked her to rely on her now, she could only rely on herself, didn't she? The real thought broke my head, and there is no hope anymore. Only if I think of a way to save my daughter. Anyway, from childhood to big, she has never been able to rely on, and she can only rely on herself. Outside the door, the mobile phone signal of the 18-bed Jiao Jiao disappeared instantly. Her mood became more and more anxious. She walked back and forth in front of Hu Frame's bed several times, and finally couldn't help it. Yes, Hu Frame said. This dead ghost, I'll go look for him. But Hu Frame leaned his head, frowning at the figure on the 18th bed, and advised, don't go out, Enran didn't say. You believe her. The 18th bed came to the bed with a smile, and opened the door and went out. She could see that the 16th bed Enran was a lunatic. The blood on that leg was all lochia, and lochio flowed like this. Baby, I still do know the woman who changed a sanitary napkin. So Enran said eating outside? Ha 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 ha. In the heart of Chen Jiao, before she finished speaking to Enran, she saw a man passing by in front of her. The man's forehead was full of blue veins, grey eyes, and creases around the corner of his mouth. Tooth is so long and long, just like a beast. Ah! Chen Jiao yelled in a fright, her scream, sharp and sharp, almost carried through the corridor, so that the man passing by in front of her stopped suddenly. Slowly turned around, quickly locked in the direction of Chen Jiao. At the same time, throughout the corridor, the zombies originally scattered from the side of Enran's mobile phone, also wandered in the direction of Chen Jiao. Chapter 17, We Have to Find a Way Out. Ah! 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 Chen Jiao stood beside the door, still yelling arrogantly. Behind her, the toilet door was suddenly opened, and Enran rushed out, grabbing the clothes behind Chen Jiao and holding her. One dragged into the ward, then quickly closed the ward door and locked it. Ah! 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 There are monsters! There are monsters! Ah! 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 Don't call it! Enran raised his hand and pushed Chen Jiao fiercely. The zombies outside the door were slamming into the door. Chen Jiao inside the door was still calling arrogantly. Enran slapped Chen Jiao again, and took Chen Jiao out of the collapsed state. Sober, and then clenched Chen Jiao's shoulders severely, sternly, and whispered. I said earlier, there are people eating outside the door, you believe it, they seem to be listening to the sound to lock their prey, don't you cry. Me and I. Chen Jiao couldn't say anything in shock, and then suddenly seemed to react, waving Enran and holding her shoulders, and whispered to Enran and murmured, who didn't let you say clearly? Blame you all, you have to make it clear, will I go out? Did I not say? Enran was almost annoyed by Chen Jiao's words. She bent down slightly, wrapped her stomach around her back to the bathroom, returned the 17-bed mobile phone, and walked back to her bed, a little ironic. Turning to the 18 beds, he said. Okay, just treat me as if I didn't say it, I can tell, we are not the same. Not all the way, Enran swears that from now on, no matter what information there is, she will never speak to these 18 beds. Look at the complaining attitude of the 18 beds, and never think about it, she just yelled. At that time, Enran dragged her in time, so that the zombies outside the door did not eat her. This kind of coquettish girl, when things happen, she only puts her blame on others. She and Enran are not the same person. They cannot form a team, cannot trust each other, and are not partners. In my heart, after placing the 18 bed into the ranks of being unable to make trust, Enran was exhausted. He lay back on the bed and began to think about how to go next, but the 18-bed still complained that Enran did not stop. She went out, causing her to be frightened by the zombies outside. She saw Enran ignored her, but just lay back on the bed. Chen Jiao was also very jealous, and ignored Enran, walked back to his bed to lie down, took out her cell phone, gave her husband, and everyone in the phone book, and started calling for help. Without exception, a cell phone without a single signal cannot make a call. The frame on the bed of 17 looks like a muddy character. She looked at the bed 18 and looked at Enran lying inside the curtain, and then endured the pain of the knife on her belly, leaned to the side and held her own cell phone and started calling the person in the cell phone. I still have no exception. I can't make a call on a cell phone with no signal. The whole world, it seems that there are only 3 mothers in this ward. Except for the ward, which is also lit, the rest of the place is dark and endlessly dark. That, Enran, do you have any idea now? Hu framed his head and looked at Enran with sorrow, but finally he couldn't hold back and asked. The curtain was pulled aside by Enran's bed, revealing Enran's dirty face. She lay down on the pillow, leaned her head down, opened her eyes, and looked at the incandescent lamp on the ceiling. It was a long time before Hu Frames came back. We have to find a way out. Chapter 18, For Our Children. Joke, of course now I have to find a way to wait for rescue, do you understand? 18-bed got up from the bed and looked at her like that. She was born naturally, but it seemed to be much more powerful than Enran, because the heart complained about Enran, so 18-bed Chen Jiao, inside and outside, seemed to be annoying same. In this case, there are so many outside, monsters or zombies. How can we get out? Are zombies? Lying between Enran and Chen Jiao, on the 17-bed Hu frame, she chewed the word thoughtfully. She had been unable to move in bed because of a cesarean section, so she did not see what the monster outside looked like. Chen Jiao said that it's a zombie, isn't that the look in the movie? Enran sat up straight from the bed in anger, and did not know where the flood power came from. Her side cut wound was pulled, and her lower body only felt blood flowing like a pillar, but she couldn't take care of it so much. Exclaimed. Rescue? Rescue is coming long ago, you should wait for the rescue slowly. I'm going out anyway. I want to transmit what happened here, and then find someone to rescue my daughter. Then Enran said to Hu Frame again, according to the current situation, the mobile phone signal is gone, and the message cannot be transmitted. I feel that the entire hospital is not optimistic. The first floor is the outpatient emergency room and the infusion room, so the first floor there are most people. The second floor is the maternal and child health department, and it is estimated that there are many people. The third floor obstetrics department, the fourth floor obstetrics department, the fifth floor neonatal department, the sixth floor pediatrics, the seventh floor gynecology. I just climbed to the fifth floor. I went to the pediatric department, and there were more people than obstetrics. Do you still want to go to the neonatal department? Chen Jiao looked at Enran sharply, only to think that this person was indeed a wonderful woman. When was it? There was still the courage to sway outside, even after having just given birth to a child, and walked from those zombies and climbed to the neonatal department. Went? Our children are still in the neonatal department. On the 17-bed Hu frame, she answered Chen Jiao for Enran. She felt that Enran was a mother. At this time, she climbed to the neonatal department to see the situation. It was very understandable. What she could understand was Chen Jiao's reaction. After all, children are all flesh falling from their bodies. The situation is wrong. As a mother, how can you not look at your children? Chen Jiao sneered and reprimanded, anyway, I don't have any mood to take care of my son anymore. That son was forced by my mother-in-law to give birth, and it hurts me to die. She said, I'll just give birth and she will come. Bring it, now what? My mother-in-law didn't know where it went. Just like you, I'm your mother-in-law, the zombies are here, I must leave you and run away. Lying back to Enron on the bed again, she stunned Chen Jiao, turned her side and turned her back to Chen Jiao, and refused to give the Jiao Jiao a little bit of face. The so-called difference is not the same, although she and Chen Jiao is the same as mothers, but they have totally different attitudes towards their children. What's more to say? Okay, don't quarrel anymore, don't be insulted. Hoo in the middle, it really came out in slime. Now the situation is complicated outside, it looks like this whole obstetric, there are only 3 of us living, we 3 must be united, not only for ourselves but also for our children. Chapter 19, Whether Alive or Alive. Chen Jiao snorted at the back of Enron, lay back on the bed, turned his back to Enron sideways, pulled up the quilt, looked out the window, and was so angry. The ward was quiet for a while, and the sound of the zombies knocking outside the door was much lighter, and then gradually dissipated, but after waiting for Enran and Hu Fangsong to breathe out, after a while, the cry of Chen Jiaja was heard. Smart, and did not dare to cry too much, just like a mosquito, with a low voice, but Enran and Hu Frame cannot be ignored. And Enran was so anxious in her heart that she turned to her side and didn't keep silent anymore. She lay on the bed and looked at Hu Frame and said, "That's it. I just thought about it. Our only way out now is to climb down the window. As long as we go outside and find the rescue, we can take the rescue back to save our children. Time is the most important. Now it has been more than 15 hours since the children left us. If they are alive, they have not eaten for at least 5 hours, and the time will not be delayed any longer. Whether he is alive or not, Enron must see his daughter with his own eyes." She analyzed that 15 hours ago, the hospital was still normal. Of course, this does not rule out that some people in the society have already been infected with the disease and became zombies. Enron remembered that one day ago, TV news began to report on the street. There are thugs on the scene, and I don't know if it has anything to do with the disease in the hospital. Then I said that this hospital is definitely not the first to be infected with the disease. Enran still remembers that she gave birth to a daughter. The doctor looked normally to check her daughter's body temperature and jaundice. She said that the jaundice was relatively high and the body temperature was a little low. She sent her daughter directly to the neonatal department on the 5th floor. At that time, everything was normal. The abnormality of this hospital happened. It was actually calculated that it was about 5 hours ago, at least Enron discovered that there was a problem with the little nurse 5 hours ago. So if the person in this hospital was infected in about the same time, then her daughter has been hungry for at least 5 hours. This is on the premise that her daughter is alive and has not become a zombie. On the bright side, she now only looks forward to being infected in the Blu-ray room of the newborn. Otherwise, Enron is really worried that her daughter will be eaten by a doctor and nurse who has become a zombie. Here is the 4th floor. Hu Frame, who was also lying on the bed, shook his head sadly. "And I am a cesarean section, I can't move. Wait here, I'll go out to rescue the soldiers." Enron sat up and looked at the sheets. "I can link the sheets and climb down the window." Having said that, Enron sat up and began to look for her maternity bag. She first needed a sharp tool to facilitate the tearing of the bed sheet in half, which would be so long, from the 4th floor to the 1st floor, but her maternity bag here, there is no suitable weapon, the only one that can hold it is a baby nail clipper. "Let's use this." Hu framed his body with his teeth clenched, his head full of cold sweat, turned out a fruit knife from the drawer and handed it to Enron. The fruit knife is about the length of a palm, a light green scabbard, and a green and white knife handle. At first glance, it is the ordinary fruit knife bought in the supermarket. It costs a few dollars, but now there is such a cheap fruit knife, that's fine too. Chapter 20, She is now a mother. Enron took the fruit knife that Hu Frame handed over, tore off his bed-stained bed sheet, folded it in half, then cut the sheet with a fruit knife, and then grabbed the cut sheet, tearing it hard. Ripped the sheets in half. Under normal circumstances, of course, Enron can't do such a vigorous thing, let alone she just gave birth to a child for 15 hours, but now, she can't take care of so much, she is not considered to be a mother at all, she is now a mother. The sheets torn into two halves were connected, and there were 2 or 3 meters, but this was not enough. Enron took a fruit knife and started tossing his own quilt, but it was still not enough. Hu Frame lay on the bed, and hurriedly quilted himself handed it to Enron. The quilt cover of this quilt is also removed, it should be barely enough. It should be enough. Enron frowned, and began to sweat all over her body. In fact, she didn't know whether the sheets were covered enough. Before that, she followed the rules and never did anything like climbing the wall and over the wall. The height is not very good, it is a meter or 2, and it will be a jump. All the torn sheets were tied and made into a rope, and then Enron prepared to tie one end of the rope to the iron shelf of Chen Jiao's bed, because Chen Jiao's bed was closest to the window, and a bed was so heavy. There seems to be no more suitable place to tie the ropes besides Chen Jiao's bed. He didn't wait for Enron to make a knot. Chen Jiao, who was lying on the bed, suddenly sat up and rushed to Enron and said, "Can't you make me quiet?" She thinks Enron is too frustrating, tearing the cloth for a while and then doing things on her bedside. Now the situation outside is so horrible. The 16 bed is still alive, and it is really annoying. Enron glanced at her, ignored the tender girl, and tied the rope to Chen Jiao's bedside, and threw the other end of the rope out of the window. She lay beside the window and looked at the rain outside the window. The platform, thinking in my heart, grasping the rope, from the rain cover on the 4th floor, can I smoothly jump to the rain cover on the 3rd floor? Apparently, the attitude of Chen Ran, who regarded Chen Jiao as innocent, completely angered Chen Jiao. She knelt down on the bed, and began desperately to unravel the rope tied to the end of her bed by her furious mouth. "What's the use of doing this for you? Does it help us to toss so much? Can we go out? Our only way now is to wait and wait for rescue. What's the use? At least I'm trying to figure it out." Seeing that Chen Jiao actually did the work of untying the rope, Enron was so angry that she pushed Chen Jiao with a palm, and directly pushed Chen Jiao from the bed to the ground. Then Chen Jiao screamed when he fell to the ground. Enron was a little frightened. She lived for 23 years. She just slapped Chen Jiao for the first time just now, and now she was so violent that she pushed Chen Jiao out of her bed. The fan slap was irrelevant to Chen Jiao, but pushing Chen Jiao off the bed was a little serious. Enron watched Chen Jiao lying on the ground and humming. The first thought in my heart was over, no, control your temper, won't be beaten by Chen Jiao now? Then I thought again, what is happening outside now, so chaotic, and there is no monitoring in this ward, that is, Chen Jiao got into her, she couldn't control so much, go out first, get the rescue, and save the child. Chapter 21, Jump. Then, Enran's heart was horizontal, and she pulled Chen Jiao, who was calling on the ground, to the window. "You go down first." "I don't want it, you lunatic, don't you look at the floor." Let her grab a rope from the 4th floor to be Batman. Of course, Chen Jiao didn't do it. Now it's 12 noon. It's not dawn, and she's tired and hungry. She just wants to fall in bed and wait for her husband to save her, so Enron is going to jump off the building and drag her. Chen Jiao didn't care about the pain of being pushed out of the bed by Enron, so he struggled desperately in Enron's hands. Enron was a little bit relieved, but he fought a willpower, grabbed Chen Jiao's clothes desperately with both hands, and lowered his voice and yelled, "You must go down, you go down first, you do not go down, I'm afraid you will give me the rope solved." Don't blame Enron's thoughts for being too gloomy, mainly because Chen Jiao has already had a previous behavior to untie the rope, so of course Enron has to force Chen Jiao to jump off the building, and Chen Jiao jumps first, she jumps after. At this point, as if I heard a quarrel in the ward, and the door of the ward was slammed by the zombies outside, Chen Jiao and Enran both stunned and did not dare to quarrel. You let me go, I let go of you. The two were not screwed together, just standing by the window, did not dare to move. The sound of banging the door was a little lower, and Enran gave Chen Jiao a glance. Regardless of the psychological journey of Chen Jiao at this time, in short, Chen Jiao did not follow the rope and jump downstairs. It was impossible for Enran to jump alone. Hu Frame lying on the bed, struggling to get up half-hearted, looking at Enran sadly, and looking at Chen Jiao, was about to talk to comfort the two to be united, but saw that Enran came to the bed of the 16 bed, picked up she was put on the fruit knife on the bed by hand, and she pulled the knife out of the scabbard, walked to Chen Jiao's side, and pressed the knife into Chen Jiao's throat. No, Enran. Hu Frame was anxious and came out of silence, but Chen Jiao was frightened, standing next to her bed, looking at Enran's collapsed face, and a faint gleam of light emerged, startled to start humming, I'm not really going to untie your rope, if you go down, I won't be like this. I'm going to harm you and harm you, I will go to jail. Shut up, I have nothing now, I only have my daughter, I have to go out alive. Enran admits that she is in a state of emotional breakdown now, and a person who is already in emotional breakdown has no use to tell her now. She is divorced, has no house, no car, no man to rely on, and her daughter is the only one she has left in this world bloodline. Now that her daughter is still alive and dead in the neonatal department, she has to go out, bring the illness in this hospital to the outside, and then take the rescue back to rescue her daughter. And be fast. The child can't afford to be hungry, and time will drag on. Enran fears that her daughter will starve to death or be eaten by doctors and nurses who are reduced to monsters in the newborn department. I'm afraid, I don't want to go down, I didn't really want to untie your rope, really. Chen Jiao was threatened by Enran's knife. Enran's knife squeezed her throat inch by inch. Chen Jiao stepped back step by step. She was crying out of breath, and then under the threat of Enran, grasped the rope tightly, climbed up the stairs crying, hung on the rain cover, and begged Enran. Please, let me go, I'm scared, I'm really scared, I'm afraid of heights, please. Chapter 22, Hurry up! Hurry up! Enran reached out, holding the back of the knife in a hurry, and scratched Chen Jiao's arm. Chen Jiao screamed arrogantly, grasping the rope, and the whole body shrank on the rain cover, and then Enran with a knife in his mouth. He also climbed up to the windowsill, sitting on the windowsill, grasping the rope with one hand, taking down the knife in his mouth with one hand, and scrambling on top of Chen Jiao's head. I didn't think about Genji, she just wanted Chen Jiao to go, lest Chen Jiao be in the ward and untie her rope. Chen Jiao was forced to helplessly, he had to hold the rope tightly, and clumsily fell down the rain cover, and hung himself with both hands to the rain cover on the 3rd floor. She also climbed on Enran on the 4th floor windowsill. When she heard that the door of the ward was hit again, she turned back and looked at the 17th bed lying on the hospital bed, watching the fear and worry on Hu Fang's face, and Enran comforted. Don't speak out, rest assured, your food has been enough for you for a few days. I found the rescue and came back immediately, rest assured that it will not take long, at most an hour or two. For more than an hour or two, she will come back if the rescue does not come. Without rescue, she will save her daughter by herself. In the bright light, Hu Frame looked at Enran and wept 2 tears. She couldn't move when she was lying on the bed, but she looked at Enran with nostalgia and nodded. That look was engraved in Enran's heart, making Enran's heart very uncomfortable. When the troubled world has arrived, Hu Frame, even though she has heart, is physically weak. In fact, she wants to leave, and Chen Jiao wants to stay. Going away, Hu Frame stayed. Enran's throat choked for some reason, no longer watching Hu Frame's, put the fruit knife into the scabbard, directly into the clothes bag, grabbed the rope and jumped off the rain cover, then shuttled off the 3rd floor. Chen Jiao, who squatted on the rain cover on the third floor, whispered. Go, hurry down. In the darkness, Chen Jiao's face was so terrified by the light shining through the window. She covered her mouth and pointed to the window of this ward on the third floor, afraid to cry. Enron glanced back. A zombie face appeared in the window, pale, with pimples on the puffy face, and Bai Sensen's fangs stood with unknown flesh and blood, and I don't know when to stand inside the window. She was startled, and before she could react, the zombie leaned out of the window, raised her hand, grabbed Enron's shoulder, and dragged Enron into the window. On the rain cover, Enran and Chen Jiao screamed in horror together. The cry echoed in the night, and the zombies swaying downstairs gathered together, and all the zombies in the ward came to the windowsill, but this windowsill is relatively small, and there is another zombie, and it is difficult for the other zombie to reach out from the window. As for Enron, she struggled in the hands of the zombies, struggling. To prevent herself from falling out of the rain cover, she grasped the rope tightly with one hand. Then Enron suddenly remembered the fruit knife in his pocket, so he used the other free hand to pull out the fruit knife, pulled the knife out of the sheath, and grabbed his zombie arm in a mess. It's just a normal person. Being stunned like this, it's long since retracted, but the zombies didn't feel it, still leaning forward, dragging Enron into the window, watching Enron being dragged closer and closer by the zombies. As they got closer, the zombie opened his mouth, showing his fangs, and opened his mouth to bite Enron's face. Chapter 23, You Killed. Seeing that he was about to be kissed by the zombie, in an anxiety, he slammed into his head, pierced the head of the zombie, pierced the blade, and then pried the blade out of the zombie's brain. The big bright thing jumped on the floor of the ward and made a jingling sound. What is? Enron was certainly out of control now. She pierced the zombie's head and loosened her grip. Enron managed to stabilize herself, stood on a rain cover, and watched the hanging on the windowsill. Zombie, soft is already a real corpse. You killed, you murderer. Chen Jiao squatting in the other corner of the rain cover, holding her head, looked at Enron with horror and anxiety. Enron's heart was also jumping wildly, as if she could jump out of her heart. She breathed breathlessly, eyes keeping staring at the zombies killed by her. There was a strange feeling in her mind, as if breaking through the ground from her atrium. She has a kind, it turns out that she can also do this kind of feeling. And now, Chen Jiao is still crying, and her cry makes the zombies in the window surround the window for a long time. Enran stomped Chen Jiao anxiously, and threatened Chen Jiao again with a knife that killed a zombie. Hurry up, don't go any further. Can't go. Chen Jiao squatting on the rain cover also pointed downstairs on the third floor. Although the night was very dark, the doctor's consulting room on the first floor was still seeing the lights that were not turned off. Through those lights, Enron could faintly see downstairs, where they have surrounded many zombies. There are still a lot of zombies in the vicinity. They are shaking up in twos and threes. It is hard to see a little further away. Is it still the case a little further away? Do zombies still exist? Enron was helpless again. She was sitting on a rain cover outside the third floor wall with a hand hanging from her dead head. She looked at the distant place, and a dark piece of it began to hug the rescue. Doubtful, there is no living person in this world except for Chen Jiao who hates her. Anyone? Is there a living person? Help! Enron suddenly shouted towards the night sky, and the sound passed into the night far away, and there was an echo from far away, and those who responded to her, except for the monsters near and far, accelerated here. No one else came together. Chen Jiao, who was next to me, was full of tears. Looking at Enran like this was scared and hated, as if what caused them to be miserable at this time was not others, but Enran. But Enran was the one who had the weapon. Chen Jiao was threatened by Enran. She didn't dare to show her anger in a clear way. A tear dripped on the back of Enran's hand, which caused her back to be hot. She snorted and looked down at her chapped back of the hand, as if at this moment, she saw her back quickly. Her tears she didn't care too much, but stood up, gazing at the windowsill on the third floor, watching the scene inside the ward secretly through the body of the dead zombie. Chen Jiao at her feet was still crying, and Enran kicked her, bowed her head and whispered quietly, "Do nt cry, you keep crying, the zombies don't go away. If you don't cry, they will definitely be gone." Chapter 24, Go to Neonatal. On the windowsill, there were many zombies gathered. They were gathered together because of the sounds of Enran and Chen Jiao moving on the rain cover, but only when Enran called for help. He was sitting in the cover all the time, above the rain platform, so the zombies in the window had not locked Enran's position for a while. It seems that they are not very familiar with the business of catching prey. After a long pause, Chen Jiao gradually stopped crying, and the voice became silent. The zombies in the windowsill spread out and continued their wandering. Enran counted the zombies in the ward, about 7 or 8 in total. The door of the ward was open. On the bed was a skeleton still hanging with scattered internal organs, which was lying on the side of the window. Enran was holding back the nausea, his hands were on the windowsill, thinking that he had to go back to the 4th floor. Since she can't go out and there is no hope for rescue, then give up and do nt rely on rescue. She has to rely on herself. Now no one can help her, and she must be alive and go to the neonatal department. Enran gritted her teeth outside the windowsill on the 3rd floor, put her knife back in her clothes pocket, grabbed the rope with both hands, and climbed upstairs to the rain cover. She was not Superman. The only time in her life when she had used a sharp tool was to cut vegetables with a kitchen knife. It can't walk through the eaves, so it's easy to go from top to bottom, but to climb up from bottom to bottom, the posture can be as clumsy as it is clumsy. Then she swears that as long as she can escape this disaster, she must lose weight. Because she didn't climb up to the rain cover on the 4th floor. Time didn't wait for someone, and her physical strength was close to an overdraft. Enran. At this time, she thought of a bold and extreme idea, and she decided to climb into the 3rd floor silently, and climb from the feet of the 7 or 8 wandering zombies. Out of this ward, she went straight up the safety stairs to the 5th floor to rescue her daughter. Daughter, daughter, daughter is the meat falling from her, she cannot give up her daughter. Enran gritted her teeth and quietly turned over the windowsill. She supported her with a hand on the medical table by the windowsill and was eaten up. The skeleton with finely divided internal organs was just in front of her nose. The smell just drifted in. After Enran's nose, she took a deep breath and slowly lifted her feet from the rain cover. The trouser tube was pulled by Chen Jiao, who was also shrinking on the rain cover. Enran bowed his head and gave Chen Jiao a glare. Chen Jiao's eyes had grieved tears and said silently, "Don't leave me, I'm afraid." Let go. Chen Ran gave Chen Jiao a kick, turned around, and said to Chen Jiao silently, "Either follow me, or stay here, or climb back, choose for yourself." Then Enran pulled his legs up, and the whole person squatted on the windowsill, watching the zombies walking around in the ward. The heart was beating fiercely. At this time, Enran felt that these zombies were listening to the sound to capture their prey. But it seems that the hearing is not so sensitive, otherwise such a silent night, such a fierce heartbeat, how could these zombies not hear? Holding the attempt mentality, Enran grabbed a simple equipment to listen to the fetal heart, and threw it directly in the side front corner. Those zombies wandering around the house, looked in the direction where the fetal heart fell. Enran quickly climbed into the window and lay directly on the top of the skeleton. A face that had been scrambled into chaos and ran across the tip of Enran's nose, the eyes stared darkly, as if looking at Enran so faintly. Chapter 25, Can you sell a lot of money? Enran held his hands and shook Ru Kang's body, barely supporting his own body, turned over, one foot got off the bed, and the other foot got off the bed, and then the whole person rolled off the bed and lay on the ground. She's so scared. But what's the use of fear? While the zombies were all gathered to the other side, Enron was on all fours, crawling towards the door, and then a pain in his knees, pressed against a glittering diamond. Enron just wanted to scold his mother. She picked up the diamond, about the size of a pomegranate seed, and put it in her clothes pocket with a glance. Then she crawled to the door, got out of the door, and was about to stand up. Stepped on the back of Enron's hand. She was so distressed that she didn't dare to open her mouth, raised her head, looked at a newly evolved zombie, walked over from her hand, sat up securely, watched her broken 5-finger phalanx, threw away after the shake, the back was against the wall and slowly stood up. The third floor is the obstetrics and examination department. Most of them here are pregnant women, or family members who accompany pregnant women to maternity leave, so there are more people than the 4th and 5th floors, but because the environment of this hospital is quite spacious, the obstetrics and examination department is not looking crowded. Enron observed all the way against the wall, seeing the obstetrics department, many people's blue tendons were almost completely exposed. This is completely exposed. Does it mean that evolution has succeeded and can eat people? Is it still evolving before it is fully exposed? She moved her body gently, about 20 minutes, moved to the safety stairs, shoved open the safety door, and flashed in. With the door's dang-dang sound, Enron just breathed a sigh of relief, and before he felt safe, he turned around and saw the staircase that had been fully evolved standing on his forehead. Qing-Jin was completely exposed, grinning at her teeth. What the hell? Enron scanned the male zombies up and down, and found that there were a lot of cigarette butts on the ground. This must be a smoker who accompanied his wife to check up, but committed a cigarette addiction and hid in the safety stairs to smoke. The smoker zombies rushed over and pressed Enron directly on the door. He opened his mouth to bite, and Enron was anxious. He did the trick again, took out the fruit knife, pulled the knife out of the sheath, and plunged it directly into the eyes of the smoker zombies. Agitated, the disgusting voice was just like jam, and then Enron swiped directly, and the smoke zombies softened on Enron's body. Behind the security door, there was the sound of zombies scratching the door. Enron didn't have much time to think about it. He pushed the zombies that were pressed onto him away and hurried up the stairs. After only 2 steps, in the safe passage, the voice-activated light flickered out. Enron turned back and looked towards the zombie's head. A paste-like brain puddle came out of the zombie's pierced eyes. The brain in the zombie's brain, it seems to be thinner than humans, just like tofu brain, and a brilliant diamond also flows out with this tofu brain. What is? Can I sell a lot of money? Enron didn't know what was in her mind, went down the stairs and walked back, crouched on the ground, holding a fruit knife, and dialed the diamond in the brain, which was exactly the same as the one she picked up, and it was as big as it is a pomegranate seed, with an irregularly cut surface, which is particularly attractive. Chapter 26, and die together. She didn't know this brilliant, let's call it a diamond, what's the use, but she picked it up, put it in her pocket, and continued to climb upstairs. This time Enron didn't take the knife back into the pocket. She took the knife directly on the road. When she walked outside the safety stairs on the 5th floor, Enron had collapsed. In order to better enter the neonatal department, she sat on the ground and prepared to rest for a while. The floor was very cold, and her back pain was so cold. It is said that she hadn't had 24 hours to give birth to the child. She shouldn't have abused herself like this, but now the situation is not available, she can't be a good child at home. Talking about confinement is a luxury. Leaning her head on the lintel weakly, Enran began to shed tears silently. Now she thinks about her ex-husband, although Jean-Lien may not be able to help her, in her life, it only appeared so a few days, but anyway, he had been her family for 1 year. At least for 1 year, she had thought about going old with this person and then dying together. Unconsciously, tears blurred Enran's face. She lifted the back of the hand holding the knife, wiped away the eyes on her face, and the back of her hand was stained with tears, but it almost hurt that she almost called out. It was very dark, and Enran couldn't see what was happening to the back of her hand. After the pain, she only felt itchy and itchy. She didn't dare to scratch it, for fear of breaking the skin would make it more painful. Holding back the hot itching sensation on both hands and arms, Enran sat up, looked at a small glass on the safety door, and saw a few zombies that had evolved successfully on the 5th floor of the newborn curry. The people in the neonatal department are concentrated in the corridor. In the dark night, the lights on the corridor flashed as if they were broken. The blue light room is at the end, the intensive care unit at the other end, and some doctors' offices are directly facing the security door. Except for the doctor's office and the corridor, no one in the neonatal department is allowed to enter or leave at will. Although many family members are crowded here, just because of the memory of the child, the zombie on the 5th floor is about to be full now, but one of the good things is that the ward door of the neonatal department is not an ordinary ward door. Very thick metal sliding door. Just a few hours after the birth of Enran, the child developed symptoms of high jaundice and slight fever. Like all the other children in the ward, he was admitted to the neonatology department. Enran followed the nurse holding the child and took the elevator. Once, when she came up to pay the child's hospitalization fee, the doctor said that she wrapped the child too much, which caused a slight fever. Let the blue light shine for 10 hours, and then continue to observe the situation. So Enran's daughter should be in the Blu-ray room now. She gently opened the security door, and a slight creak sounded in the silent corridor. It was particularly noticeable. Several nearby zombies were attracted to it. She opened a door slit and looked at the nearest one. Only zombies are close at hand. Standing in the safe passage, Enran tried to turn her side as far as possible, so that the zombie touched the crack of the door. After half of her body, she stood behind the zombie, slammed the security door tight, and caught the zombie. Then he leaned against the thick security door, raised his knife hand, and poked at the melon seeds in the head of the zombie. Chapter 27, Just like killing a chicken. This is already the third zombie killed by Enran. Her business is gradually becoming more proficient, and she starts to feel a little bit. She feels that the head of this zombie is also vulnerable to poke, just like the watermelon. These zombies are human. Is a human's cranium as fragile as a watermelon? She has not killed anyone, of course, there is no comparison. I waited until the zombies slumped softly, and opened the door securely, letting the zombies slide down the door along the crack of the door, and the brain flowed out when the floor fell. But at this moment, Enran didn't have any idea. She killed the zombies, and she would make some movements. The second zombie had touched it, kicked on the first zombie, and Enran hurriedly ran a hand. He grabbed the zombie's hair, raised the zombie's head, raised his hand and dropped it, and cut the zombie's throat with a knife. There was no use for eggs, and the zombie's throat was filled with sticky blood like strawberry jam, but it did not die. Enran quickly refilled with a sharp knife. The knife tip went in through the throat, and the blade was deeper. The entire head of the zombie was easily cut off. Pretty. She gave her a point, just like killing a chicken. But this did not make Enran feel happy. At this moment, she was so sad that she just wanted to cry. Because these zombies are exactly like people, except that there are no fangs on the mouth and no blue tendons on the forehead, the feeling of killing the zombies is as if Enran was killing people. And Enran has never killed a chicken since she was small. She wanted to eat chicken and bought it at the food market. Then she watched the boss kill the chicken and held the chicken's head up. Seal the throat with a knife, and then let out chicken blood. She felt trembling and didn't know what kind of person she would become if she continued to kill. Is it a murderer or a pervert? I don't know if these zombies will be rescued in the future. I don't know if she has committed homicide today. All these things make Enran feel that her life is not ruined and almost broken. Not only life, but also her belief, everything about her, gradually disappeared with the fall of one zombie after another. Some kind of strong despair appeared on Enran's face. Watching the third zombie also came, and she was kicked on the second zombie too. She hadn't gotten up yet. She picked up the knife and dropped it. The zombies were resolved. A diamond emerged from the brains of the third zombie, and fell to the ground, emitting the dazzling light from the light transmitted through the corridor. I picked it up and found some diamonds in the brains of the second and first zombie heads. It seems that there is such a pomegranate seed-sized diamond in each zombie head. What's the use? She doesn't know, it looks so beautiful, maybe it's a diamond, then she didn't send it. For the time being, put them in your clothes pocket before making a plan. All 3 zombies nearby were resolved, and a zombies herd in the distance, also slowly came towards her. Enron remained silent for 10 seconds, those zombies who walked over lost their targets and scattered. Going to swim elsewhere. She lay on the zombie's back, entered the neonatal department, and quietly moved towards the blue light room. The door of the blue light room was very heavy. Like this door, there was no access card or fingerprint password. It is estimated that people outside cannot open. Chapter 28, Who Made You Bite Me? There is also a zombie dazzling near the blue light room, and there is a zombie near the zombie, and there are several wandering nearby. This means that Enron must open this metal door in a very short time, and cannot kill the zombies near the Blu-ray room, because when she kills that zombies, she will trigger the whole body and the nearby zombies. Everyone can hear the sound coming around. So the only way is to enter the Blu-ray room as soon as possible, when the first zombie comes up. She took a deep breath and tried to push the door of the Blu-ray room hard. Hey, she was so lucky that she pushed the door open. Seeing a gap opened, she walked in securely, but her shoulders were behind her. The zombies arrived and grabbed them. Let go. Enron was in pain, raised her hand, and stabbed at the zombie holding her shoulders casually, without piercing her head. The zombie was still jumping alive, at this time. The situation happened. Inside the door of the blue light room, to the inside of the blue light room, there is a passage around the blue light room. This part of the door is for the doctors and nurses to put on sterile shoe covers and sterile hats. Yes, at this time, there is a zombie in a nurse's outfit. The zombie had been waiting for Enron in the door. When Enron grabbed her with a knife and grabbed her zombies, the nurse pretended to hold her hands with her zombies, opened her teeth, and bit her on the other shoulder of Enron. On. What? Enron couldn't help but screamed. The knife was still stabbing the zombie behind the crack of the door. This time it finally caught. The force holding her shoulders loosened. Enron changed her knife in her hand and left hand. Turning around, she bit her bitterly and bitten her nurse's head. The sliding door of the Blu-ray room has the effect of automatically closing. The zombies that were killed by Enron were caught in the door gap. The zombie behind the door didn't understand how to open the sliding door for a while. The gap left was too narrow. It looks like the zombies outside the door could not get in temporarily. This gives Enron a little time to vent his emotions. You bit me, you bit me, you bit me. Who made you bit me? Who made you bit me? She completely broke down, the pain made her lose her mind, stabbed frantically at the nurse zombies, and then she cried again. She felt that she was like a perverted murderer now, and this mentality had gone crazy. Looking at her image again, she had long hair, her face was covered with the brains of the nurse's zombies, her skull was broken, and she splashed all over her. I also had blood shed from her own shoulders, which stained her entire arm. Then, when the zombie died so much that he couldn't die anymore, Enron dropped his knife, shrank into the corner, looked at his hand, and couldn't help crying. If you are bitten by this monster, will you be infected with tetanus or rabies virus? Should she get a vaccine against tetanus or rabies? Then thought of her ex-husband again, crying in peace and crying, "Husband, where are you? Husband, come and save me quickly, my husband is afraid." At first, she had to do it, or she insisted on divorce, and she had such a sense of responsibility. Today, without her saying that, he will definitely come to save her. After all, she is the wife he is married to, but now they are divorced. Even if Jean Lien is still alive, why should he save her? At best, he can only be regarded as her ex-husband. Chapter 29, Wuji. Sometimes when people are at the point of life and death, some emotions become very intuitive. Yes, Enron admitted that she was really scared. Now she doesn't want to be strong by herself. She just wants to wait for her ex-husband to save her. However, she cried for a while, and Enron felt that the zombie teeth on her shoulders were not so painful, and she turned to tears and glanced over her head. The two little blood caves were swollen with blood, so fast? Or has it been a long time? Time doesn't allow you to think slowly. Slowly soothe your inner haze, and slowly think about whether to get a vaccine or the like. Open a sliding door outside the door and watch as a zombies squeeze in. Enran hurriedly picked up the knife on the ground and killed the zombie again, just like the stack of humans, chopped the zombies that came in on the back of the first zombie. She killed several zombies in a row and finally let her stop for a while. The crisis of survival made her feel that the two teeth holes she had bitten seemed to be no longer painful. After the pain completely passed, Enron bowed his head silently, picked up the diamonds on the floor, and turned into a blue light chamber with a knife. Opened the sliding door of the Blu-ray room. There were 5 zombies inside, all wearing doctors' and nurses' clothes. In the dark room, they were surrounded by 2 incubators that only emit blue light. They were anxious to find a breakthrough. Eat the baby inside. Because of the baby's cry, the zombie did not pay attention to the Enron entering the blue light room. There are several adults, and baby skeletons lying on the ground. It seems that the doctors and nurses who did not become zombies, as well as the babies, were eaten by the zombies. The whole Blu-ray room is a bit messy, some Blu-ray boxes have been squeezed aside. There must have been a fight here. It is likely that the medical staff who did not become zombies had a fight with those zombies. They may have done their best to guard some children, otherwise why are there still 2 living babies crying in the blue light room? Enran wanted to slap herself, why she couldn't be stronger earlier, so she could find a way to enter the blue light room earlier, and the baby would not be eaten. Suddenly, Enron was as dead as death, silently walking past the Blu-ray box, watching the babies who did not make any sound inside. All of them had fangs, lying weakly in the Blu-ray box. No one feeds them flesh and blood, so they can only lie here and die. Alas, these babies are dead. Soon weighs 2 or 2, and a blue light box of crying came out, and the baby's crying was already very weak. I was afraid that if they would no longer feed the 2 babies, they would be close to death. In Enran's heart, she suddenly felt so much pain that she didn't dare to think about it. Thinking about her was a nightmare that would never be restored. She just grasped the fruit knife in her hand, stood behind a zombie, raised the knife, rushed with that zombie's brain pierced. A zombie next to him was unaware that he was still beating the Blu-ray box in front of him. He wanted to open the Blu-ray box, but the delicious baby inside was not allowed to go. Enron continued to kill, and he would surround the incubator. All 3 zombies were killed. The child inside was still crying, and Enron reached into a hand from the round hole on the side of the Blu-ray box, held the child's small wrist, and looked at the bracelet worn on the child's wrist in blue light. It's not her name, it's Chen Jiao's name, this is Chen Jiao's son. Chapter 30, Like a Godsend. What about her daughter? Enran felt dull pain, took his hand blankly from the Blu-ray box, and looked around the large Blu-ray room. There were no more children crying except the remaining incubator. Only 2 children remained unchanged. Into a monster, the rest is either eaten, or all grow tusks silently. Bang dang, the remaining Blu-ray box was overthrown by the 2 zombies. The baby inside, together with the box with blue light, fell to the ground together, crying a bit more, and the lid of the blue light box was also broken open. One of the zombies touched the door and stretched his hand inside baby. Enran turned her head and looked at the baby's face. Although she was blindfolded, in the blue light, she still felt that the face of the baby gave her a familiar feeling. Every mother can recognize her own child at a glance from some of the baby's facial features, although maybe the mother and the child have only seen one side. Although the newborn child has a long wrinkled face, it is almost the same. It is difficult to have recognition, but the ability to recognize one's flesh at this glance is an inherent ability as a mother. She was surprised and screamed in her heart. She rushed over with a knife, and fell on the zombies. She threw the zombies to the ground and pierced the knife. Before waiting to draw his own fruit knife from the zombie's brains behind him, there was a zombie biting her neck, and Enron twisted his body desperately, stepped back, and fell on the zombies. After a tear, she yelled, savagely, madly, like a divine help, cut the whole arm of her zombie, and finally struggled. She couldn't care about the 2 holes in her neck. Anyway, there were a lot of holes in her body. She turned back and pierced the sword, leaving the broken arm behind her dead. Whoever touched her daughter, who died? In the cracked Blu-ray box, the child wearing only a diaper was still crying. Enron lost the knife in his hand, reached out to hug the child, and then thought of the dirty blood on her hand. She cried and stained her hands. After rubbing a little on his clothes, he carefully took the child out of the Blu-ray box. Flip open the bracelet on the child's wrist and read the words Enron, this is her daughter. I really do. Great, thank God, thank Guanyin Bodhisattva, thank God Jesus, and thank Grandpa Mao. Enran cried and laughed, thanking everyone in the heart, ancient and modern, inside and outside, who could thank him, and then kissed her daughter's face in an embarrassing manner. Her daughter's eyes were still covered with black cloth, her head was a little bit biased with a weak murmur in his mouth, his throat seemed to be crying, and he intuitively arched into Enran's chest. Hungry, right? You are hungry. Enran wiped away her tears and spoke softly to her daughter. Now she doesn't feel pain anywhere, even though she just bit her neck by the zombies, but Enran feels that at this moment, she is in a very good state. Never before when she found her daughter, she was as if she had completed a transformation. She was full of energy. It really seemed as if she had received the help of God. Her thoughts were so clear that she began to be excited. Chapter 31, Doll. As if Enron got the help of God, he sat in the dark corner with his daughter, opened his clothes, grabbed the Blu-ray box on the ground, a sterile cloth used to pad in the Blu-ray box, and wiped his chest. This is feeding her daughter. Her swelled like a stone, and slowly slackened under her daughter's big mouth sucking. Enron suddenly obtained a supreme satisfaction. Is this the magic of breastfeeding in the legend? Oh, my mother hasn't given you a name yet. What's your name? Feeding her milk, Enron sucked her nose, bowed her head and couldn't help crying. Her daughter wasn't dead, which was too good, but in the future, how should they live and go out of this hospital? This question is very worrying for Enron, but she can't think of so much at present, so she can only take a step and look at it. She just sits in the dark and hugs her daughter, which is actually good, at least they are together now. Mom doesn't know what your name should be. My mother's name is very useless. Let me give you a little name first. Would you like a baby doll? Good baby. Wait until Dad comes to save us. And let Dad give you a nice name. Okay, baby, will Dad come to save us? The baby ignored her. The baby was born less than a day ago. Now she doesn't understand anything except eating. She seems to be very hungry. She only cares about feeding. After eating for 2 minutes, she is tired, take a rest, and then eat. After eating and stopping like this, the doll directly emptied one of Enron's breasts. It didn't take long for Enron to breastfeed, and there was not much breast milk in one breast. Naturally, the doll did not eat enough, and then the doll did not have to suck. He opened his mouth and narrowed it again. Sitting on the ground, the pain of her doll gradually recovered from the cry of her doll. She raised her hand and wiped a tooth hole on her neck. Then she realized that she had been bitten again by the zombie, but this time she waited until she felt it. By the time of the pain, the cavities in the neck were crusted. Now that it is crusted, there should be no danger to life. Enron suddenly yawned, thinking a bit tired, and replaced the doll with a breast. Let her continue to eat. This breast was eating and eating, the doll was out of strength. He fell asleep with Enron's milk. She rubbed her that had been pinched, with a faint blue light, kissed the baby's sleeping face, and the baby's eyes were still covered with black cloth. This was because she was worried that the blue light would hurt her eyes. The black cloth was removed. Although Enron couldn't see the whole picture of the doll, the softness and satisfaction in her heart were full of swelling at this moment. Chen Jiao's son was still crying, but the crying stopped, and it seemed that the crying power was almost gone, and the two children's throats were hoarse and pitiful. Enran had a little mood, thinking that although Chen Jiao was annoying, but the child was innocent. He held the baby and walked to the side of Chen Jiao's son's blue light box. Looking around, there was a blue light on the wall. Below is a storage table, long, with a few bottles of soaked milk on it, and a warmer. At this time, a bottle of milk is in the warmer. She walked over, picked up the milk bottle in the milk warmer, held the baby and unscrewed the pacifier and smelled. The milk should be fresh, not broken, and kept warm by the milk warmer, so it was still warm. It's hot, just right for little babies. Chapter 32, Good Breastfeeding. Because I found the doll's excitement and a little excited Enron, I never thought about finding if there is a milk bottle in the Blu-ray room, and it is dark in the Blu-ray room. She was so anxious that she was about to die of hunger, and picked up her clothes and started to feed. Now she calmed down, and Enron thought about her zombie's teeth. She was a little annoyed at the time. She was too excited at the time, and she forgot about what she had been bitten by the zombies. Now she started to worry. She didn't know she was bitten by the zombies. Will it be infected with rabies, tetanus or something? What if the baby drank her breast milk and also infected with any virus? But now that I've fed, what can I do? Since she was a little girl, she had little nerves. She rarely considered the issues so comprehensively. She couldn't be careful and careful. Otherwise, she wouldn't just meet her ex-husband for a second time. Married. If she thought about it at that time and thought about the pros and cons of military marriage, she would never marry a soldier or become a military soldier, and she would not even give birth to a baby today. However, she thought about it again, and Enron was relieved immediately. She looked like the doll was pretty good. She smashed her mouth, and although she was a little disturbed, she fell asleep in her arms. If she was infected with any virus, no more. A baby who was born less than 24 hours ago may not be able to survive without eating her breast milk? If she is not infected, that is the best. If she is infected and the baby is infected with her, that's fine. It is better than a little bit, starving to death in this dark-haired blue light room. If her resistance is stronger and she has carried the virus infection in her body, but the baby has poor resistance to the newborn and cannot resist the virus infection in the body, then Enron will accompany the doll to go with it. The world is already desperate anyway at this point. Enron has no baby, and there is no point in living. However, this last possibility should be relatively small. Doesn't it mean that there will be antibodies from the mother's body? In other words, the antibody in the doll's body is the same as the antibody in Enron. Enron did not become a zombie, and the doll naturally did not. This must also be related to the antibody in the body. Her antibody will stay in the child's body for 6 months, and it will disappear after 6 months. So many parenting public accounts say that children within 6 months rarely get sick, and 6 months later children will have frequent symptoms such as cold pneumonia after the antibodies from the mother disappear. Of course, this is not absolute. Some children are less than 6 months old, but there are many examples of frequent illness. But do we all say breastfeeding? The mother's body will automatically filter some harmful substances and turn the blood into RU juice to feed the child. Enron also listened to the hospital's propaganda and breastfeeded the baby intuitively. After feeding the baby, she found the bottle, so it's useless to regret it now. It's all up to God. The relieved Enron quickly put aside breastfeeding and non-feeding, because less than a day after breastfeeding, Enron's breast milk was not much, and the baby was too hungry. The two were already empty for the baby, so she couldn't feed Chen Jiao's son. Chapter 33, You Really Make Evil. Now in this dark blue room, I see pay attention to the milk of the newborn. If you want to drink it immediately, or only drink milk for less than 2 hours, Chen Jiao's son will be starved to death, and Enron will take it directly. With that warm milk, she was fed to Chen Jiao's son. Chen Jiao's son has been hungry for a long time like a baby, and he can eat it. Popular science says that the milk volume of a newborn is about 30 to 60 ml. A 300 ml bottle is eaten by Chen's son. 100 ml, this will be the rhythm of a big stomach king. Enron holding the baby in one hand and Enron holding the feeding bottle in one hand, looking at the son of Chen Jiao who fell asleep while eating in the Blu-ray box, and laughed unconsciously on his face. This month-old child sleeps when he's full, so he can take it with him. Just Enron feels hungry. I didn't know what kind of perseverance she had before. After she gave birth to a child, she just took a rest for an hour and started tossing. She didn't feel hungry before finding a doll. Now that she finds a doll, she feels like a whole person. I was so hungry that I pressed my chest against my back. She looked at the few bottles left on the table near the wall. The milk inside was full, and Enron hesitated a moment, licked her lower lips, turned and slapped herself, and cursed. You really make evil, where can't you find something to eat? You have to grab the children. After scolding himself, Enron turned around, holding the baby around the blue light room, thinking about what he should do now. Those zombies that have not yet fully evolved outside should have more or less food on her body, but how can she go out with her doll? These demented zombies who have not yet evolved successfully, may not have one. The fruit is ripe, the evolution is successful, and it is dangerous to take the baby out. But if you put the doll in the Blu-ray room, it will be full of small zombies. Although those small zombies will not yet crawl, maybe when will it? Outside zombies will evolve, no one can say the speed of evolution, and what kind of monster will be at the end of evolution, no one knows, so who can guarantee that these baby zombies in the Blu-ray box will it evolve? Enran couldn't accept that her daughter, who had finally found it, would encounter any danger because of her carelessness. She thought for a long time, put the sleeping doll into an empty blue light box, and began to touch the clothes on the ground. The first 5 zombies here are 1 doctor and 4 nurses. Because the environment requires sterility, it is basically impossible to bring any snacks on the body into the blue light room. Enron did not report the expectation. Collect diamonds from your head. At this time, at the gate leading to the outside, Enron also killed a few zombies. The diamonds in their brains were scattered on the ground. Enron never picked them up. After finding the doll, Enron was in a mood. Open the door of the Blu-ray room, pick up the diamonds, touch the zombie clothes she killed, and find some wallet lighters and cigarettes from it. Looking at this pile of coin change lighters, cigarettes, or something, Enron felt a little disappointed. None of these things can be eaten as food, but is money useful? Will the money be reused if the world returns to normal in the future? Chapter 34, Aku like Enron. Enran bit her lip for a long time, and she had no experience in the last days of survival. She could only take out the paper money in her wallet, stupidly, carefully folded it, and put it in her clothes pocket on the other side. After all, what the outside world looks like, no one knows. Human society is still normal in a long distance. Then Enron will collect banknotes from now on. When she arrives at a normal place, she will not be a rich man. Thinking this way, Enron also felt that his future life was still very promising. This behavior, a little more optimistic, can also be considered entertaining. Enron, like Q, returned to the Blu-ray room with a pocket of banknotes and looked at the little zombies lying in the Blu-ray box. Some of the good moods that had just risen instantly swung back to the bottom of the valley, and Enron sighed. I can't bear it in my heart, but I still closed my eyes and solved them one by one. Make evil. Those little baby zombies made Enron's heart uncomfortable, but she didn't solve these baby zombies, in case they evolved into a species that can climb out of the blue light box, and Enron ran out to kill the zombies. The doll and Chen Jiao's son are in danger. Sometimes soft-hearted, it will cause a calamity, this bet, Enron dare not bet. It took about an hour to clean up all the little zombies in the Blu-ray box. After taking the diamonds from their small heads, Enron was too hungry. During the period, Chen Jiao woke up once, and Enron fed him a warmer. The baby was awake once again, and she whipped her throat 2 times, and then fed her breast milk. This time the 2 were emptied again by the doll. If Enron stopped eating, she would be afraid that the milk would return. Her heart was anxious, and she added 30 ml of milk to the baby. The little boy ate a little, so he pouted and fell asleep again. I do not know how long it has passed, Enron did not close his eyes, so he had to go out of the Blu-ray room to find something to eat while the children were asleep. When Sun was still standing outside the metal sliding door, Enron saw the outside doctor's office. A zombie lay with a fruit basket under his feet, which should be given to the doctor. She intends to go out to get the fruit basket from the sliding door. Of course, this requires a thorough preparation. Whether it is in the process of taking the fruit basket or retreating later, a comprehensive plan is needed. First, Enron turned around and collected some coins from the corpse's purse and pinched them in his palm. Then, in order not to be so hasty when he returned, Enron slightly cleared the zombies caught in the sliding door. She pushed away the top 2 zombies, and the remaining 2 zombies continued to be trapped to prevent the metal door from being completely closed, so that she could retreat into the blue light room. I waited until she walked quietly to the door of the doctor's office, looked at the zombie, raised the fruit basket and ran back, and the plastic bag that wrapped the fruit basket made a continuous rubbing sound, which also attracted several zombies along the way. Looking at the zombies blocking the road in front, Enron decisively dropped the coin in his hand on the wall in the distance. There were some promotional pictures made of metal frames hanging on the wall. Several coins smashed on it and the sound made as if it were raining. The sound of tinkering was louder than that of fruit basket wrapping paper. Chapter 35, How to Live. The zombies who planned to enclose Enron were attracted by the sound of a coin smashing the wall without any suspense. Enron also carried the fruit basket and stepped on the zombies trapped in the door slit, and smoothly entered the passage of the blue light room. Of course, she was more careful this time, ran into the Blu-ray room and glanced back, and found that a zombie did not go the unusual way, did not go to the place where the coins rang, but followed the sound of the fruit basket wrapping paper. In fact, it originally stood by the edge of the Blu-ray room. As soon as Enron ran close with the fruit basket, it naturally followed behind Enron and went straight into the door of the Blu-ray room. If Enron's steps stopped for a few seconds, the scapulae will be caught by this zombie again. She turned around, waiting for the zombies to chase into the door slit, watching it fall on the corpses of the same kind, raising her hands safely, and killing the zombies without hesitation, and then glanced at the side that had been rolled the fruit knife, hiding behind the heavy sliding metal door, breathed quickly, waiting for the zombies to come around to retreat themselves. It seems that with the passage of time, these zombies have been stiff from the beginning, and have started to move more flexibly. The original walking posture looks like a handicapped person with a disability. Now his hands and feet can bend, and those who follow the sound hearing seems to be a little sharper. The cricket is the sound of the slight plastic wrapping paper, and they have not let go. Enron's heart sank suddenly. She realized that zombies would really evolve, and thanked herself for solving the little zombies in the blue light room in advance. At the same time, Enron felt very rushed, as the crisis of survival became more and more. When it gets worse, how can she live with her 2 children alone? After a while, the zombies outside the metal sliding door fell apart because of losing the target. As a mother's sense of responsibility, let Enron cheer up again. Now she can't die, she can't die, because when you die, you don't die one life, but three. Her heart fluttered, and she entered the Blu-ray room with a fruit basket. This time, it didn't take much time. The doll and Chen Jiao's son didn't wake up. There was another one between the Blu-ray room and the metal door. A thin door was separated by a seemingly long passageway. In this passageway, the plastic bag was unpacked. The zombies outside the heavy metal door were inaudible. Enron went in, leaned on the edge of the door, and started. Open the fruit basket in your hand. The fruit basket is very large, because the baby's family wants to send it to the doctor, and the food is sufficient, and the fruit is fresh. Apples, pears, bananas, and a cantaloupe, and some lychee, longan, avocado, etc. are also scattered. The seasons are all different, but there is nothing to do with it. Today's society is well developed, and it is easy to fill up a fruit basket with different fruits in different seasons. Enron didn't wash his hands with water. He picked the fruit with his dirty hands and felt that he had been hungry for so long. He still had to eat some fruit, so he grabbed an avocado and peeled it. She ate one avocado and did not eat enough. She ate another avocado. Enron was full before eating half of the avocado. Holding on to the remaining avocado, Enron yawned, lying sideways on the floor, tired and fell asleep. In the dark night outside the hospital, a heavy rain stopped for a while, and then it was desperately up again. At about 6 o'clock in the evening, the sky began to appear white, and the sky gradually lightened. Chapter 36, This is a Magical World. The Enron in the Blu-ray room was leaning on her body, and she didn't find any of the visions in the sky. Even if she did, she didn't have much mood to care about. In her sleep, she was like being in an ice cellar with shoulders and 4 teeth around her neck. The hole was just the same as the fire, and after a while, it made her feel warm. She rolled over and lay flat on the cold floor, only the back of the palms of both hands felt itchy and painful, as if something was going to swell out of the palms. Enron uncomfortably put her palm on the floor and groped. One accidentally pinched the core of an avocado. She pinched it hard, only feeling as if something was going to grow in her body. It seemed to her mind. A thunder was brewing, making her dizzy. It felt like she was going to die. Suddenly, the thunder in her head exploded, and a bang blew up in Enron's head. Her ears instantly lost hearing, but Enron's body on the ground seemed to be lifted by an invisible big hand. In the upper body, her weak head was upside down, her eyes opened sharply, and her pupils were green, like spring buds after the rain, and instantly turned back to black. She was awake, and began to feel like drowning. A piece of bamboo-like thing stuck on Enron's wrist. In the dim blue light, she felt a lot better, and fell back to the cold and hard ground. It is the kernel of avocado in your hand that has sprouted. That thin bamboo stick-like thing grows from the tip of the avocado kernel. In Enron's itchy and swollen hands, the leaves grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. The leaves become wider and larger, and finally grow to its knot long when the ruler is long. This is a magical world. Enron stupidly looked at the avocado kernel in his hand for a long time, and discarded this magical avocado kernel, and then planned to rest with his eyes closed. She thinks all this is dreaming, and when she opens her eyes, the world will return to its original state. The doll's humming sounded in the blue light room with blue light in the dark, and it seemed to be awake. Enron couldn't, holding up his cold and hot body, crawled into the Blu-ray room, and braced himself to the doll's Blu-ray box, stood up weakly, took the doll out of the Blu-ray box, and sat on the floor to feed her. Feeding and feeding, Enron didn't know when he fell asleep on the ground. She's too tired and tired. Now Enron can't think of anything except to mechanically copy the movements of holding a baby. Then she didn't sleep for a while. The doll emptied Enron's chest, spit it out, opened her mouth again, and closed her eyes with an intention, letting the doll slap for a while, and she was so tired that she didn't feel like a mother. But the doll was also hungry, and she kept crying. She woke up the son of Chen Jiao next door. Then the two dolls cried together. Enron had to sit up with his crazed head and changed the doll in her arms. Eat her breast on the other side. Then, while milking the baby, she stood up to feed Chen Jiao's son and feed it. Enron felt that she could fall asleep while standing. She really narrowed her eyes while standing, then suddenly her feet were soft and she was awake. Come over. Startled, she almost dropped the baby. After feeding the milk to Chen Jiao's son, the baby was almost full, but this time the baby was not asleep, and he started crying after pulling his throat. Chapter 37, You are so realistic. What's the matter with you? Hurry up and sleep. I slept when you slept. You can see that Chen Jiao's son is asleep, and you haven't slept yet. Enran looked helplessly and looked down at the baby in her arms. Understand what happened to this child. I used to sleep when I was full a few times ago. What is happening now? Then I realized that my arm felt hot. It was a baby's diaper wrapped in butt. She pulled a lot of urine. Oh, you're peeing, but you're uncomfortable, right? Enron put the crying doll into the Blu-ray box, and tore off the diapers on the doll. Instantly, the grinning little stopped crying, and he hummed twice, as if there was something dissatisfied. Little head just fell asleep. You're so realistic, ignore me after using me. Enran pouted and smiled. After this episode, she had a lot of headaches and a lot of mental energy, so IQ was reluctantly put on the line by the doll, dropped the diaper on the ground, and began to explore in the Blu-ray room. Now, can I find a new diaper? In fact, according to inertia thinking, littering everywhere is certainly not good, but in this case, she didn't have the mood to find the trash can when she felt dark, and it was full of zombies and skeletons. Will live more tired. It is said that the rules of this Blu-ray room are that children have to take off their clothes when they go in. Parents are not allowed to bring anything to their children. Therefore, the diapers, milk powder, etc. are all uniformly provided by the hospital. There should be a somewhere special for these things. Thinking about it like this, Enron looked very carefully, and when she thought about it, she found a surprise. She was actually outside the blue light room. On the passage that seemed to circle the blue light room, she touched a door and opened it. The light is bright, and the air is just right. There is a large operating room and a vent. I looked out from the vent. I don't know which corner of the hospital. There are two zombies standing underneath, wearing doctors' and nurses' clothes. Maybe they came here to smuggle a little difference during work. The clean sky blue table is full of baby bottles. The hospital's uniform baby bottles are equipped. There is no brand. Only the hospital label is affixed. Some lids are opened. Others are left aside and the wall is hitting. There are several small doors under the table in the hanging medical sterilization cabinets, which are opened and put a jar of milk in it, but it is a domestic brand, XX brand. The hospital also said it was imported milk powder for the children. Enran looked at the milk jars and snorted, which was to express her dissatisfaction. What is her situation now? She can't even eat enough, dare to pick up milk for the children. Naturally cannot. In addition to milk powder, there are many diapers, sterilized wipes, etc. in this operating room. There are also nasal suction devices, tweezers, medical scissors, and the like. What is needed for newborns, all in this operating room. Out of the operating room, continue to explore along the passage. Enron found another door. She opened it and looked at it. It is a lounge, a small one, clean and tidy, and may also be the dressing of doctors and nurses in the room. There are a row of cabinets on the wall. There are several sets of spare doctors and nurses in the cabinets. In addition, Enron even found a large box of chocolates and a few lollipops in a cabinet, which should be hidden by a nurse to eat. Chapter 38, They Evolve Fast. The chocolate box is also tied with a ribbon, and there is a small card on the ribbon, which says, "I know life is short, marry me, make my short life rich and vast." This is a marriage proposal card. The words above have nothing to do with Enron, but for some reason, Enron's eyes are red. She feels a little emotional, and feels like she has witnessed a love, and she sees another regret. No wonder the nurse who received the chocolate will bring these things in. She must have received the box of chocolates with great joy, waiting sweetly in her heart to be a bride for a man, but never thought about it. Still, before she eats the chocolate in the box, she has already encountered the last days. What about the man who proposes? Has he become a zombie, or is he still waiting for his future bride? Maybe neither, he just chose to turn and run away. Anran's heart was very embarrassing. She continued to walk along the lounge and passed through several doors. The opposite door was the back door of the intensive care unit. Then she realized that this seemed to be a dedicated internal passageway, and this passageway might still be around. A circle on the 5th floor of the neonatal department. There should be a door here, which is directly connected to the safety staircase from the internal passage on the 5th floor. Isn't this the general design of hospitals? Various passages are mixed in a variety of ways. Even if there is no safety staircase, this passage must be connected to a downstairs passage. This is to prevent fires and the like, so that the baby can be transferred in time. I haven't found this door yet. She didn't dare to go forward anymore, fearing that she would cry when the doll and Chen Jiao's son would cry, so Enron folded back again, and outside the blue light, on the other side of the passage, Enron found a sliding door. There is no small compartment in it. There is a grid of cabinets in the cubicle. The cabinets are clothes for the baby door. The wall of the cubicle is a transparent wall, which is isolated by a sky blue curtain. Usually parents want to see their children. The nurse will hold the baby here and let the parents take a look. Annan opened the curtain, looked at the transparent wall, and wandered back and forth between the zombies. She couldn't stop shaking, and couldn't tell whether she was afraid or proud. She could see them, but they ignored her. Then, behind the transparent wall, Enron took a closer look at the zombies in the neonatal department. When she entered the neonatal department, it seemed that there were not so many fangs with fangs, but now look again, now zombies with fangs have grown more than before when she went out to grab the fruit basket. They are evolving fast, but I don't know what made them evolve, and they need food just like people do? Or do you need light and water just like plants? These can only wait to find a smart person to ask later. Enron is too stupid. She didn't think about analyzing these. She just wanted to live with her 2 children. After understanding the environment, Enron felt relieved. She transferred the doll and Chen Jiao's son to the doctor and nurse's lounge in the corridor. The 2 children should not be kept in the blue light room all the time. Hibu took it off and went to the compartment to find the baby clothes of Chendo and Chen Jiao's son, and changed the 2 children. In the early autumn, the city of Xiangcheng was a bit cold, but the hospital had not been powered off, and the central air conditioner was still running. You don't have to wear too thick here. Chapter 39, No Water. Lying on a small single bed with 2 children, Enran suddenly felt that there was a bed to sleep in. She was really happy. Don't want it? Life is so rare and easy. She didn't want to go out of her life. However, this is not realistic. After a while, Enran didn't let him fall asleep. Chen Jiao's son began to cry again, and Enran fed him the last bottle of brewed milk, thinking that although there were enough milk powder diapers, there was no water. On the wall in the operating room, there is a water purifier with a heating function, but the water is purified. Although it is not completely black, it also has a thick earth brown. I want to come to the hospital's water purification system. That's all, not to mention the kind of semi-suspended water purifiers in ordinary people's homes. Is the water source polluted? Enron doesn't know, but as a modern person, dare to drink this kind of water? Do adults dare to drink even if they dare to drink it? So I have to find mineral water. When Enron thought of mineral water, she felt a little bit dry. This uncomfortable state made her feel a little angry. To be honest, her current state has exceeded her physical limit. The two children cried for a while. Yes, she urinated for a while, and again. She didn't even have time to squint her eyes. It was so difficult to feed the two children. When the children fell asleep, she had to go out and kill the zombies to solve the survival crisis. And her daughter's baby can drink her breast milk, but her milk is only enough for the baby. One more child is not enough. There is no need to go to the baby to find mineral water for milk. Now it is because there was an additional Chen Jiao's son, so Enron, who was almost exhausted, wanted to find mineral water for this child. She is not an angel. She is born beautiful and kind and tender and affectionate. At best, she is a small citizen in the market. She has a bigger vision and does not know where she was blinded by the warfare. She forced her to marry. As a secular person, she will also have some calculations in reality. These Enron benefits and losses, Enron naturally want to. Not to mention anything else, because of the existence of Chen Jiao's son, she has to do more than double what she was supposed to do now. Taking care of a child is a trivial matter. Now, she has to take care of two. What's more, in the last days, whoever encounters such things as her will be irritable. Anyone will. I said again, that Chen Jiao's son was not her own. Why did Chen Jiao not care at all, and bother her? I can't tell the truth, but also because Chen Jiao's son fell into Enron's hands. If anyone besides encounters such a living situation as Enron, will he care about Chen Jiao's life? The child had been left behind for a long time. Enron, while still angry, silently sealed herself an angel's laurel. What she should do for Chen Jiao's son is still the same, she just couldn't take it anymore, but what can she do? Can the qi in her heart be sprinkled on a child who was only born 2 days ago? Surely not, so Enron had to take the two children out and take them to the 4th floor. She had limited energy. It was impossible for her to jump up and down while killing a survival bloodstream. She is going to return the child to Chen Jiao. Then Chen Jiao hung on the rain cover on the 3rd floor. I don't know if it was up or down or starved to death. But is there a 17-bed Hu frame on the 4th floor? Chapter 40, Saline. Hu frame's child should have been eaten by the zombies. Although it was dark in the Blu-ray room, Enron had carefully looked at the baby zombies in the Blu-ray box that she had solved. The bracelet did not have the name of Hu frame, and the entire 5th floor was fresh. In pediatrics, only the two babies, the baby and the son of Chen Jiao, survived. So what happened to Hu frame's child? The results were obvious. Enron didn't tell Hu frame whether her child became zombies or was eaten by zombies, both. I don't know which one will make Hu frame feel better. She only knows that no matter what happens to Hu frame's children, it will not be good news for Hu frame. Thinking of the next step, Enron was lying in a small bed, sleeping side by side with two children. This sleep was slightly better, probably about an hour before waking up. Although it was a baby, the cry sounded awake, but she felt satisfied enough to let her sleep for so long. Waking up, blunting her head, Enron gave the baby a meal, changed her clean diapers, and thought that Chen Jiao's son woke up a while and had to drink milk. Then she held the baby out of the 5th floor internal passage. Wandering carefully. Since I was hanging around and being cautious, it was actually contradictory, but things in the world were ever-changing and everything was uncertain. Enron felt like he was walking in a horror movie. The routine of horror movies is that the corner may be when encountering a ghost. Enron was holding the doll again, and of course she had to move forward carefully. This internal passageway is very narrow. There is a glass of transparent glass on the left and rooms on the right. It seems that many of these rooms have the doors closed tightly, and there is no sign on the door, indicating what's the use of this room. Enron tried to open a room with black gurgles inside, and looked at the sunlight coming in from the window, as if it were boxes of medicine. Sodium chloride injection. Enron looked at the name on the box and thought for a long time, then realized, isn't this just saline? Baby, you see we have a drink. Normal saline can be used to make milk powder. Although it is cold, it can be heated in a milk warmer, and it is also possible to make milk, which is better than starving Chen Jiao's son. And this is just an emergency. Enron is still thinking, just to give Chen Jiao his son 2 days, and when she calms down, she still has to go out from those zombies and find mineral water to make Chen Jiao's milk, then the rest of the saline solution could be left to her to drink. Enron was holding the baby who had fallen asleep in one hand, and took a bottle of saline from an open box with one hand, and hurriedly returned to the lounge, put the baby on the bed and fell asleep, and hurriedly after the operation room, I took out the normal saline solution from the bottle, poured it into the milk bottle, and put it in a warmer. A big bottle of physiological saline can be filled half full. The son of Chen Jiao almost only drinks 100 milliliters of milk each time, so Enron still pays attention to Chen Jiao's son, how much to drink, and then the rest. The salt water was treated as mineral water by Enron. The milk warmer has been moved to the operating room long ago, perhaps because of the disaster. At night, there is a dark piece outside the hospital. Except for the solar street lights, there is no light at all. It should be large-scale power outages. Chapter 41, Shit. The light emitted by solar street lights is so weak that it can't illuminate the darkness farther away. In places like hospitals, all places in the world are experiencing power outages. There may not be a power outage here, so there is still power in the slot. Yes, the milk warmer can also be used. I waited until the normal saline in the milk bottle was heated to the proper temperature. Then I picked up a can of domestic milk powder on the operation table, looked carefully at the ratio, scooped the milk powder with a spoon, and poured it into the milk bottle. The milk made with normal saline is naturally not as good as the milk made with purified water. I don't know if Chen Jiao's son will have a diarrhea after eating. Enron feels guilty, but can't find a better way to solve the problem. She could only stand in the lounge, wondering how she could bring a child who might cry at any time, from the neonatal department on the 5th floor to the obstetrics department on the 4th floor, just to let Chen Jiao's son drink a breast milk. After a while, Chen Jiao's son woke up shortly after he slept, and burst into tears, and pulled a special amount of on the diaper. Oh my god! Enron couldn't get too busy, one big and too big, to bear the stench in the air, gently lifted Chen Jiao's little feet, unbuttoned the diaper, and filled the from Chen Jiao's little. The uncle's diaper was pulled out, and it was too late to give Chen Jiao's son a way to clean his butt, and the baby cried again. Are you timed? Wake up once an hour and keep me alive. Enron reluctantly put down Chen Jiao's feet, and the shit-filled buttocks stuck on the sheets. Enron groaned in pain, picked up the clothes with one hand, fed the baby breast milk, and put the crying baby's mouth was blocked. Then he got up holding the baby who was suckling milk, and then Enron went to the operation room again, holding the feeding bottle that had been kept warm, returned to the lounge, and stuffed the pacifier into the mouth of Chen Jiao's son. When it stopped, she was relieved. Then Chen Jiao's son put the on the bed sheet, and Enron didn't have time to get it. Only after Chen Jiao's son and the baby were full, she got some clean paper towels and wiped Chen's buttocks, changing put on clean diapers. As for the on the bed, Enron really didn't have the energy, moved 2 babies, and put clean sheets on the single bed. She just wiped the paper with the on the sheets. He fell asleep in bed and casually. Over time, Enron was used to things like child shit. So now, Enron has also figured out some of the rules of these 2 babies. It is about waking up once an hour and eating when you wake up. You have to eliminate the cause of piss. In other words, the baby and Chen Jiao's son have no other needs now. They are either hungry, or urinate, or they are uncomfortable. Once you have mastered this rule, it will be more convenient when Enron goes out to explore. When the doll and Chen Jiao's son are all asleep, she narrows her eyes and does not fall asleep. Just wait for her spirit to be better. On the bed, he started to turn blindly in the passage, and occasionally turned into the neonatal intensive care unit. The back door is always better than the front door. There are also several zombies in the neonatal intensive care unit, but the baby is no longer alive. After Enron solved the zombies, the fruit knife in his hand was completely blunt. I don't know when it will end when I use it again. Chapter 42, Difficult. It is really difficult. I first saved the child without eating and drinking, and now even the knife in his hand is blunt. Enran stood in the intensive care unit, looking at the fruit knife that was almost out of hand, sighed, without the knife, did she let her hand tore the zombie? This is not making anti-Japanese drama. However, even though the fruit knife in his hand is about to break, Enron is still reluctant to throw away the fruit knife. After all, it is also a knife. She put away the fruit knife, put it in her clothes pocket, passed through the neonatal intensive care unit, and reached the front door of the neonatal intensive care unit. Enron searched here. When she entered the Blu-ray room, it was because the sliding door of the Blu-ray room was not locked, and it could be pushed open from the outside. Of course, there was a switch inside, which could open the door without any effort. Similarly, there were also in the intensive care unit one such switch. Enron nodded back, fed the baby and Chen Jiao's son, ran to the operating room, took the tweezers he had found in his hand, and then returned to the door of the intensive care unit and opened the thick door, holding a pair of tweezers in his right hand, and a fruit knife with a rolled blade in his left hand, quietly curled up in the corner and waited. She was thinking whether she could find an operating room and use a scalpel as a weapon. After all, the quality of the scalpel is more reliable than that of a fruit knife, but obviously all the operating rooms in this hospital are arranged on the top floor. To have a cesarean operation, the mother must be pushed from the third floor to the operating room on the top floor to perform a laparotomy. And what will happen in the newborn department? In addition to the ordinary medical tools such as tweezers and scissors, Enron can find out the sharp weapon, which is estimated to be the needle in the intensive care unit, or it belongs to the smallest and finest needle. So if Enron wanted a scalpel, at least all the zombies on the top floor had to be solved, and she is now having trouble even getting out of the fifth floor. Medical scissors are a sharp weapon, but the zombies have killed a lot, and the weapon has become a consumable. Enron has to save a bit of use. Since there are tweezers, try the hands with the tweezers first, and the needle. She decided to go back and practice the cheat book Little Li Fei needle, and see if it has been practiced for 10 years, and when she is 70 or 80, can I fly a needle or something to kill the zombies? The quality of the tweezers is better than the quality of the fruit knife. After all, this is a medical tweezer, and it is also a relatively long type. It is made of precision steel. It is sharp and can be used as a killer. Fruit. How much is a knife? Not as expensive as tweezers. Enran's fruit knife has been rolled up, and it is estimated that it will be completely scrapped when used again. She thought about waiting for the critical moment, and holding the fruit knife to save her life, now naturally also need to save a little use. The intensive care unit is located at the other end of the corridor on the 5th floor. It is completely opposite to the Blu-ray room. The door opens with a slight sound, which attracts several nearby zombies. They have not shaken into the door because of the air. No more noise, and then lost the target and spread out. Enron in the corner was relieved, slowly walked out of the door of the intensive care unit, stood at the end of the corridor and looked around, locked a baby basket, a large backpack beside several zombies, and then quietly moved over. Chapter 43, Power. Enran went to the 4th floor to find Hu Frame and Chen Jiao, holding the 2 children, and found the security door in the internal passageway, but how many zombies on the 4th floor? How can she solve it? What should she do if the doll and Chen Jiao's son start crying again during the resolution process? Was he missing the doll and Chen Jiao's son, or was he holding 2 children to kill the zombies? I was obviously the distance upstairs and downstairs, usually 2 steps away, but in this horror movie, it is very difficult. Enran's back was against the wall, and he quietly moved towards the baby's basket. 1 step, 2 steps, the sunshine outside the hospital was just right, and the whole corridor brought a little warmth. Enran, who was only a mural against the wall, suddenly stopped her footsteps. In front of her, just ahead, a zombie walked past her chest, and the zombie was not tall, about 1 meter. 65 looks a little higher than Enran. At such a good opportunity, Enran didn't even think about it, raised his hand holding the tweezers, and pierced the head of the zombie. The tweezers didn't feel as good as the fruit knife. After all, it was a thin body and not very good at gripping, but Enran took the tweezers into the zombie by virtue of her power somehow. In her head, it was just sweat in her hands. The tweezers plunged into the head of the zombie. The zombie's body fell down and slipped away from Enran's hand with the tweezers. She can't take out the tweezers. Seeing that the zombies fell to the ground, several nearby zombies turned around, and before they locked their directions, there was no sound. Enran, who was all sweaty, exhaled slowly, or took out a fruit knife and gave it to the ground. A knife was added to the zombie's throat, and the entire head of the zombie was cut off. Then, pick up the nuclei in the brain tissue flowing down the bowl hole on the zombie's neck, and continue to move towards the place where the safety basket and backpack are placed. Along the way, she only needed to pinpoint the opportunity, and she used a blunt fruit knife to pierce the zombies that were closer to her. As the business became more and more proficient, Enran's courage became more and more important. With the baby basket and the big backpack on her back, she even felt that there was nothing terrible about these zombies. Use at least a fruit knife, be more careful, and pinch the direction. She pierces the zombies' brains as easily as watermelons. I don't know if her physical strength has increased or whether the skull of a zombie is not as hard as a human skull, probably because of the latter. After all, what kind of species is rising, where it is against the sky, and naturally has its weaknesses local? Holding the baby basket and carrying a large backpack on her back, Enran turned back to the internal aisle, walked to the back door of the operating room, and returned to the lounge in the internal aisle. It took her less than an hour to come and go, so the doll and Chen Jiao's son has not yet woken up. So Enran sat on the bed and looked at the baby basket. It was brand new and unused. It was very high-end. It was estimated that it would have to sell for thousands of dollars in the baby shop. The baby stayed inside was tightly wrapped and safe. The key is that the basket and seat belt can be installed in the car without shaking. Then she flipped over the big bulging backpack, which was all milk powder, diapers, and clothes for small month-old babies. Chapter 44, No New Food Found. This is a neonatal department, something that will appear here, of course, it is related to the newborn. This safety basket is estimated to be used by parents to send their children up. The contents of the backpack may also be what parents want the nurse to hold for their children. Enran went out several times without finding new food. She had a strong sense of insecurity and felt that staying on the 5th floor was not a wise choice. At this time, the dew on Enran had already overflowed with pants-type sanitary napkins. She had a little time to observe her pants, which was already a blood-stained one. Is there any difference in this sanitary napkin? In fact, let Lulu dye her red crotch. Enran simply took out the panty-shaped sanitary napkins and decided not to pad them. She took a paper towel and wiped the underside of her, and suddenly felt that her side cut was wounded, and I didn't know when it would no longer hurt. Enran pulled another stack of paper towels, aside his legs, rubbed his waist and wiped the area under the side cut, and pressed it hard. It really didn't hurt, as if healed. Ordinary maternity, does the lateral wound heal so quickly? Anne then realized that she had been trapped in this neonatal department for 2 or 3 days, and she ran and jumped. She didn't even think about the side cut wound, and she didn't feel the pain below. That means she was a long time ago. Did the lateral wound heal? Healing ability so fast? When I was thinking so, a large pile of lochia broke out, and it was warmly stuck on Enran's thigh, flowing down, and at the calf. She wailed, took out a paper towel, and gave the blood on the leg to rub it, but lochia will flow for many days. If Enran does not use sanitary napkins, it will always stain the legs. In this world, it is estimated that there are no more pregnant women who are more embarrassed, dirty and unlucky than Enran. She has a broken mentality, thinking that since she has become dirty, it is more dirty, it does not matter, so she lost it wet wipes, let blood flow. Then I thought that there were too many disinfection wipes anyway, so I took some and wiped her and hands clean. After all, she is now a mother and wants a baby to hold her baby. The two parts of the body are too dirty. It is good. After finishing my body, Enran found a clean set of nurse clothes and pants, then went back to the Blu-ray room, took the fruit basket that was placed in the Blu-ray room, and ate the 3 big ones inside. Banana, waiting for the doll and Chen Jiao's son to wake up hungry. After a short while, Chen Jiao's son and the baby woke up hungry, and before they started crying, Enran started feeding the 2 children. The baby was feeding her breast milk, and Chen Jiao's son drank milk and saline. After feeding the 2 children, Enran picked up the baby and put it in the baby basket, then put Chen Jiao's son into the backpack, took out some messy milk powder diapers, and pulled the backpack's zipper slightly. Open it up so that Chen Jiao's son can breathe. The fruit basket contained the rest of her fruit, as well as the large box of chocolates and lollipops she had previously found. If you ask why Enran's doll is in the basket, Chen Jiao's son is sadly put in the backpack. Of course, it's because the relatives are different. The basket is so big, and there are no 2 babies at all. Now, Enran can take Chen Jiao's son from the neonatal department, it is already a great compassion. Naturally, it is impossible for her daughter to stay in the backpack. Put Chen Jiao's son in the basket as a treasure. Chapter 45, would rather go out and kill the zombies. Having prepared all of this, Enran carried his backpack on his back, carrying a baby basket on his left, and a fruit basket on his right, and began to walk unscrupulously in the internal passageway, and smoothly found the door to the 4th floor safety staircase. To the security door on the 4th floor. At this time, the doll was a little uncomfortable and routine. It was less than half an hour. It was almost 20 minutes. She cried in the baby's basket, and Enran felt a little bit, and put the baby's basket and the fruit basket in it. When he got to the ground, he unloaded the big backpack behind him and sat on the icy steps. He took the baby out of the baby basket to coax. Looking at the other side of the security door on the 4th floor, the zombies heard the cry of the children, and gradually gathered in the direction of the safe passage. Enran was very anxious, holding the dolls and tapping, but this little was not by it. Enran couldn't. He had to hold the doll in one hand and a fruit basket on his finger. The other was carrying a backpack and took Chen Jiao's son from the backpack back to the aisle on the 5th floor. In the passageway on the 5th floor, the baby stopped crying, but Chen Jiao's son started crying, and Enran's head was so big that she was so irritable. This brought the 2 children to survive in such a harsh environment. To be honest, she would rather go out and kill the zombies now. Really? Then, since the condition of the child cannot be estimated, it is impossible for Enran to sneak to the 4th floor and take the 2 babies directly to Hu Frame. Her heart is sloppy. The only way now is to slowly killed out. I want to come here to kill the zombies. She killed all the zombies on the 4th and 5th floors. There will be no children crying suddenly, attracting the siege of zombies, nor will she kill the zombies on the 4th floor. The phenomenon that the zombies on the 5th floor will touch the internal passage to eat children. The trouble is that the fruit knife in her hand is obviously broken and the tweezers are not easy to use. With the needle, she hasn't learned little Li Fei needle yet. So Enran now only has a pair of medical scissors and a fruit knife that is dead. Scissors are slightly easier to use than tweezers. Medical scissors in hospitals are not the kind of art scissors at home, but the longer ones. They pierce the head of the zombie. You can use your fingers to hook the ring on the scissors. The scissors were pulled out easily. But it doesn't feel as easy to use as a fruit knife. However, Enron felt that she could practice how to pinch a pair of scissors when killing zombies. She had some experience. Although the skull of a zombie may be more crisp than a human, if you start from the chin of a zombie, if you pierce the brain directly below, or from the position of your temple to the head of the zombie, it will be more labor-saving. In fact, the easiest to get into the brain is the zombie's eyes, but you have to pierce your eyes from the front of the zombies. Now to kill the zombies, you must take your back or side, so that the zombies cannot touch her and she is safe some. The blade of the scissors may be relatively small. The brain of the zombie is not the same as the brain of a person. It looks like a thick sticky liquid inside. As long as the scissors enter the brain of the zombie and draw a hole, the diamond can flow down this mouth. Chapter 46, Don't Cry. After choosing the weapon, Enran returned to the internal passageway on the 5th floor with peace of mind, and started to coax the two children with concentration. The result made her feel frustrated that the child was just like being fine. Chen Jiao's son was okay. Sleep when you are full, as long as you do nt noisy, you can sleep for 1 or 2 hours, but the baby is just coaxed to sleep, and wake up as soon as you drop it. After finally coaxing the doll to sleep, she also put it down, and Enron wanted to sleep again, but she was holding on, knowing that the doll would not give her much time. After coaxing the doll, Enron immediately ran out of the internal passage, holding a pair of scissors and killed a zombie. The speed of killing zombies is faster and the sound is less. Now zombies, at most, pay attention to the source of the sound for more than 10 seconds. If they cannot continue to make sounds, they will easily lose their hunting targets. But they are constantly evolving. Enron lived in the zombies for so many days. She also saw some differences. Some zombies can keep the source of the sound more than a dozen after Enron made a sound. Seconds of attention, but some zombies will soon dissipate. Some of the zombies responded more quickly to Enron's attacks. Some zombies were stupid, but Enron's knife penetrated into their brains, and they didn't respond stupidly. So Enron felt that the zombies seemed to be getting stronger, and the speed of getting stronger was different, but the difficulties she encountered were rising steadily. This hospital is not a place to stay long. He walked to the door of the internal passage. Enron resolved several zombies that were trailing behind him, and then carried a large plastic bag under the foot of a certain zombie back to the internal passage near the door. When entering the lounge, Enron stayed to hear the cry of the doll. Sure enough, the doll belongs to the kind of child who wakes up when she puts it down. Enron doesn't remember where she read an article and said that this kind of child wakes up when she puts it down. There is no sense of security, they need adults to hold them all the time. Sighing, Enran put down the plastic bag in her hand and picked up the crying doll on the bed. She kept lamenting in her heart. When the survival became more and more severe, why did she bring such a lack of dolls? A sense of security, a child that an adult needs to hold at all times to continue to survive in the last days? Looking at the doll's small head, she leaned towards her chest and lifted her clothes. While feeding the doll, she turned the plastic bag that she had just taken back. There was still no food in it. Some were only diapers, small clothes, pacifiers, soft spoons, etc. Playing with the unopened pacifier in her hand, Enron watched that the doll was full, and she put the doll on the cot. Sure enough, the doll started crying for 2 minutes, and Enron hurriedly put her hand in her hand. The pacifier was taken apart and put into the baby's mouth. She sucked the pacifier, grumbled dissatisfied, and fell asleep quietly with the pacifier. Artifact. Enran was just crying, although experts said that such things as pacifiers have mixed advantages and disadvantages for children. It is best not to give them to children if they are not used, so as not to get out of trouble later. But when is it now? Zombies can be found everywhere outside. Enron must also consider the actual situation. Of course, let the children who have no sense of security do not cry. Chapter 47, Penance and Flower Baskets. With such a pacifier, Enron took longer to kill zombies. Since it was decided to clean up the zombies on the 4th and 5th floors, Enron was not idle. With the help of a pair of scissors one after another, almost half of the zombies in the 5th floor have been solved. She is killing zombies faster and faster, and she is familiar with the light. As long as she is not besieged by more than 2 zombies at the same time, she can solve all crises one after the other without panic. Moreover, she also started to have some tricks in the way of killing zombies. Previously, she always killed the zombies from behind the head of the zombies or from the side temples, but now she occasionally challenges starting from the front of the zombies. For example, a zombie is pushed to the wall, his arm is horizontally across the zombie's neck, he holds medical scissors to pierce the zombie's eyes, and then use the scissors to stir the zombie's eyes. The harder point is the diamond in the head of the zombie. On the 7th day, Enron's fruit basket was completely eaten, and there was not much chocolate and lollipop left. She was a little panicked, looking at the corpse in the corridor, and not far away. The withered basket at the place, Enron didn't know how annoying. These days, the consumption of physiological saline is also very large. Not only does Chen Jiao's son need to use physiological saline for making milk, but Enron also needs to replenish water. At the same time, the 2 newborns should not be too dirty, and occasionally every few days. It looked like Enron had to use 2 bottles of normal saline, find some clean gauze, and wipe the baby and Chen Jiao's little body. She likes watching the 2 children clean and refreshing, even though she is dirty and ghost-like, but watching the children are clean, Enron is happy inside. So even though there is a lot of normal saline, it will eventually run out of the day. This kind of crisis makes Enron anxiety every day she stays in the neonatal department. Sometimes, in this desperate situation, she would think about taking a bath with the dirty water of the water purifier. However, the water purifier in the operation room, the water flowing out, is still yellow and do not know if it can be used. Enron took a bottle and left it on the table. After a long time, the yellow substance did not settle, and Enron also gave up the idea of bathing with this water. At most, when she was fainted by herself, she wiped herself with disinfectant wipes from the hospital. Although there were many wipes, Enron didn't know how long she would spend in the hospital. Wet wipes can be saved a little, she will never use the second one, and often wait to wipe a white wipe to the color of briquettes, Enron will discard. Regarding the issue of food and clothing, Enron can only hope that in the corridor outside, there will be a family member of the baby who can give the doctor or nurse some fruit baskets or the like, so they are feeding the 2 children and replacing them with new ones after dry diapers and small clothes. Enron immediately went out and started hunting zombies for supplies on the 5th floor. In current hospitals, relatives of patients seem to be more inclined to send penance than those who give fruit to medical staff. Enron found several penance in the neonatal department on the 5th floor. In addition to the penance, she also found the flower basket that a family member zombie was going to give to a doctor and nurse, except for the pennant and flower basket, could not find anything to eat. Chapter 48, Powder Snow Mountain. She walked to the side of the flower basket, looked at the flower basket under her feet, and rubbed the greasy, stinky hair in an annoyed manner, holding the withered flower in the flower basket and became annoying, and then squatted down and reached out her hand. Venting anger generally lowered a flower in the flower basket with yellow petals and powdered snowy mountains, and took it out from the nutrient mud, ready to throw it on the ground and step on it. He frowned, staring at a bulging green tendon on the back of his hand. The back of her hands was full of dirty blood. It could be her own, or it might have been accidentally stained with zombie blood when killing the zombies. Anyway, she didn't have any water to bathe, and they all mixed together and solidified. Enron, it is also impossible to tell which ones are her blood and which ones are zombies. But this is not the point. The key is the blue tendons bulging on the back of her hand, much like those on the zombie forehead. Enron hurriedly grabbed the powder snow mountain and rubbed her forehead. There was no blue tendon. Then where did this blue tendon come from? As soon as I had this idea, Enron felt that the blue tendon on the back of the hand was swelling. This kind of pain had always been there when she hadn't noticed it, just like when she was eating avocado that day, it seemed that something would be on her. The back of his hand broke out. Enron was too tired these 2 days. She has been ignoring the discomfort on the back of her hands selectively, but she did not expect that the problem was so serious. Will she become a zombie? Enran's scared heart was about to shake. She sucked her nose, and some nervous started rubbing the tendon with her other hand. I can't become a zombie, I can't be a zombie, my daughter is so young, she can't live without me, I can't, you walk away, you disappear, walk away, I don't want to become a zombie, please hurry up, hurry up. As she rubbed, the hand that bulged a tendon, the powder snow mountain that was originally held, and the dried leaves, as if adding water, suddenly filled up, and then slowly it started to sprout and grow roots. The original withered flower fell down, and from the lush branches and leaves, another flower emerged. Then, in the eyes of Enron's frightened dementia, a delicate flower bloomed. Powder snow mountain. The blue veins on the back of Enron's hands disappeared slowly during the flowering process. What? She yelled and was so frightened that she lost the dazzling powder snow mountain, looked at the zombies in the place, and ran quickly to the blue light room, then stopped in front of the blue light room door, anxiously turning around. He returned to the flower basket, picked up the withered flower basket and the tender and delicate powder snow mountain, and stumbled back to the doll's side. The materials in the lounge have been organized by her. The last zombie on the 5th floor was solved by her. Her pocket is full of glittering diamonds. She bulged most of the pockets. In addition, she collected them. Many banknotes were put in the big backpack behind. The 2 children were sleeping, one was placed in a baby basket and the other was placed in a fruit basket. This big bag looks like a refugee who is going to flee when he just goes away. When he leaves, he carries a backpack and lifts it. The basket can go. Chapter 49, Change. Seeing Enron like this, she was panicked and annoyed because of her hunger, but she was actually ready to go to the 4th floor. The 4th floor must go down. After all, the 5th floor is some newborns who only need to feed, but the 4th floor is obstetrics. Whether it is a mother during or after birth, the nutrition must keep up, otherwise how can the child? What about nutrition? So Enron thought with her toes, and knew that there would not be less food and drink for her in the building below. Her disheveled hair and dirt on her face made her look like a layer of black-red blood on her bare skin, especially her clothes and pants, just like soaking in blood. Have a shower in general. Now Enron was holding the withered flower basket, sitting on the small bed, staring blankly at the powder snow mountain in her hands. She was not quite sure what happened to her, but she felt vaguely that this powder snow mountain, the resurrection of Lee, has nothing to do with herself, so after half running, she turned back and picked up the flower basket and Fanfiction mountain. She can bring flowers back to life? Enron put down the powder snow mountain, and took out a completely withered eustema from the flower basket. Thinking of his hand, he shouted tentatively, "Change." The eustema ignored her at all, let alone say that she was born again. There are no leaves. The withered flower, straddling his head, seemed to laugh at Enron's childishness. Her old face was a bit embarrassed. She put the eustema in her hand with Fanfiction, rubbed her stomach, which was already hungry, and fell on the single bed, thinking that the doll and Chen Jiao's son would still did not wake up, quickly took a nap, so as to support the spirit to go to the 4th floor to continue killing the zombies. The diamond in the pocket was half full, and then jumped out of the pocket with Enran's movement and fell to the bed. Enran picked it up weakly, took it in his palm, and closed his eyes slowly. She dreamed again, dreaming that the blind date that night, Zhang Lian took her to eat roast chicken. He should have been dating a girl for the first time at that time. It is estimated that even a female friend had never before introduced a matchmaker who introduced them. Without guidance, he ordered 4 roast chickens according to his stomach, 2 of him and 2 of Enran. Enran just ate and ate. When she ate herself, her stomach almost broke. The 2 roast chickens felt like they hadn't moved much. Enran cried. She felt that she might not be able to eat these 2 in her whole life. Only roast chicken, but the warfare on the opposite side has already been eaten. He raised his head, frowned, looked at Enran with those black eyes, suddenly reached out, and stuck his rough fingers to Enran's face, and wiped tears for Enran, saying, "If you look down on me, don't cry." No, she cried because she couldn't finish eating chicken. Enran didn't remember that she didn't say this. She in the dream just cried, she just knew how to cry, crying. Enran opened her eyes suddenly, she sat up, the doll and Chen Jiao's son crying. Enran shook his chaotic head, raised his hand, and lifted out a handful of white powder like lime. She raised her hand strangely and looked at her hand covered with white and grey. Where did it come from? Then she was awake, picked up the baby in the baby's basket, picked up the dirty clothes and started to feed, and took out the milk bottle brewed earlier and stuffed it into Chen Jiao's son's mouth. Chapter 50, Blue Tendon on the Back of the Hand. Some people say that it is true that she is stupid for 3 years. It may be because of the effects of hormone levels in the body, or because of the trivial care of children. Enran simply can't sleep well, so she has a forgetfulness. Great, believe it or not, she can't remember what her ex-husband looks like now. I may remember after seeing it, but now let her imagine that she forgot. So when she turned her back, while Enran was busy for the 2 children, she had forgotten what was covered with white ash. She just feels weird. Why doesn't she feel hungry at the moment? On the contrary, she still has a feeling of fullness in her stomach. Is it possible to dream of eating roast chicken and also dream of being full? Watching the son of Chen Jiao smashing his mouth, drinking milk indiscriminately, Enran couldn't help smiling, and when he turned his eyes, he saw that he had been stained with lime powder on the back of his hands, covered with blue tendons, and there were more than 1 or 2 now, but countless roots. When I saw these blue tendons again, Enran was not as panicked as she was at the beginning. She finished feeding the milk to Chen Jiao's son, lowered the bottle, raised the back of her hand, and watched it over and over again. She held the doll in her other hand and was still feeding breast milk, but Enran clearly saw that the back of his other hand was also full of bulging green tendons. She grabbed the eustoma on the side, thinking about letting out the pain on the back of the hand, and the eustoma in her hand started to grow, sprout and blossom like pressing the fast-forward button. Haha! Enran laughed twice and lost the eustoma growing in her hand. The growth rate of that eustoma slowed down and gradually stopped. She looked around again and found the avocado kernel she had left aside before. In accordance with the way that the orange eustoma was reborn, a branch of avocado was successfully grown. I really did not die for her. Does it seem that she has acquired some special function that can give birth to flowers and plants? She had seen several movies of Zhou Xingxing before, and there was something about special functions in it, so it was easy for Enran to pull this ability that she found on the special function. It was just that the avocado spawned was no longer growing after just growing branches, and the blue tendons on the back of Enran also disappeared quickly with the growth of the avocado kernel. Wait for the blue tendons on her hands to grow. But how can she make the blue tendon on her back grow again? Enran was a little confused, and the blue tendons were gone. She felt the hunger of coming back, which made her have no thoughts. She could only collect the blue and withered flowers, the flourishing powder snow mountain and eustoma, and the lush foliage of avocado seedlings, continuing her killing from top to bottom. All the zombies on the 5th floor were cleaned up by her. A corridor was full of corpses, which looked quite shocking. Enron left the pile of supplies and moved the sleeping doll and Chen Jiao's son to safety. In the stairs, he started holding a fruit knife and scissors, opened the security door, reached out half of his body, and observed the situation on the 4th floor. Most of the evolving zombies on the 4th floor were almost blind. Now they have fangs. Looking from the direction of Enron, they can just see the room where Hu Frame is located. Door. Chapter 51, One Durian with 3 Chickens. The door of the ward of Hu Frame was closed. It may be that there was a noise before. The zombies in the corridor were all around the door, grinning with fangs, but the zombies on the side of the security door, but there were only a dozen or 20. If nothing else, Enron should be able to handle it all. In her current life, except for the baby, she is killing zombies. It is second to her to find supplies. This has been 7 or 8 days in a row, and she has not slept well. Opening her eyes as zombies, baby, zombie, and baby people are quite skilled in killing zombies. Enron skillfully knocked on the security door with medical scissors. The sound was not loud enough to attract the last 2 or 3 zombies. The first zombies first arrived at her. Enron faced it face to face, and smiled suddenly. After a moment, he raised his hand and pierced his temple with the scissors on his hand. Then pry up with scissors and pull out to pry the wound on the temple larger. I waited for the first zombie to fall to the ground, and the second zombie had already rushed over. Enron continued to solve it without any hassle. She is now able to use her terrain advantage to make herself invincible. The so-called terrain advantage is to use a security door to trap the zombies, leave a seam to let the zombies' heads come in, and then clamp the zombies so that the zombies can't move. She no longer hurriedly pierces the zombies with a pair of scissors. This kind of strategy and tactics made it easy for Enron to remove the 5 or 6 zombies around the security gate. The zombies near the security gate might have caused terrain congestion. Enron also dragged a few zombies into a safe passage. The glass of the safety window was broken directly, and the zombies were thrown out from the open safety window. Occasionally, the doll and Chen Jiao's son woke up to make trouble, and Enron quickly ran up the safety stairs, carrying the fruit basket and baby basket for the 2 children, and quickly entered the internal passage on the 5th floor. The strategic tactics made it easy for Enron to wipe out a dozen or 20 zombies wandering near the security gate. It's just that she is an ordinary woman who has no experience. In the past 2 decades, she has never fought with other people. In addition, the doll and the son of Chen Jiao are too young to cooperate with her at all. It took me 2 days to fall asleep and solve the various problems of urination for the baby to solve the 10 or 20 zombies part-time. In the past 2 days, Enron's estimate was correct. The maternity department on the 4th floor is rich in materials, and various high-calorie foods suitable for maternity production can be seen everywhere. Even the zombies on the 4th floor can take out some chocolates. She even found a full box of mineral water, biscuits, and yolk pie in the ward near the security door. Because some mothers have children, there will be many relatives and friends to visit her, so family members will deliberately prepare a few boxes of mineral water in the ward, and come to a relative to entertain a bottle of mineral water. It is polite, and the relatives and friends come after seeing the mother who gave birth to the child. It is impossible to come empty-handed, you must bring some fruits and so on. Therefore, in the maternity department on the 4th floor, the fruit types are also common. Just the durian, the king of fruits, Enron found out 2 or 3. Broken chicken soup, suckling pig's feet fish soup, etc. are even more numerous, but they are all broken and you can't eat them. You can eat durian safely. 1 durian can have 3 chickens. Make her milk like spring. Chapter 52, Empathy. This eats well, and Enron's mental state is also good, and she found a rule that as long as she eats, the green tendons on the back of her hand will come out, and the more you eat, the green tendons on the back of her hand will rise. The faster you get, the more you get, except Enron hasn't found any other way to get blue muscles for the time being. It's just that the green tendons are coming out faster, but the energy in her hands is also used very quickly, often by letting a bunch of withered flowers come back to life, which can make the energy in her hands clean up, and she also in conclusion, you can't put your energy too clean, otherwise your stomach will be hungry and your back will be hungry. So after going back and forth a few times, all the flowers in the flower basket were urged by Enron, and it was beautiful and beautiful, but she took such a basket of beautiful flowers, and it didn't have any eggs, and she couldn't eat or drink. Drink and just watch. But to lose these flowers in this way, Enron feels a pity. It seems that after she found out that she can give birth to flowers and plants, Enron suddenly had an inexplicable empathy for these flowers and plants. This kind of empathy is very difficult to describe in words. It really is about a change of personality. She feels that if she is left alone, it is like watching her daughter and baby crying there, which makes her have a sense of unbearable responsibility. Then Enron figured out a way. She found a few flower pots in the doctor's office on the 5th floor. There were many such pot plants in the doctor's office, whether it was from the ornamental interest, or from the patient's family, or doctors use it to absorb computer radiation and the like. In short, there are many such potted plants. Enron planted the flowers that gave birth to her roots, and the seedlings of avocado, and planted them in flower pots together with all the messy green plants. It also looked green and gave a very a feeling of. After I finished all this, Enron touched the flowers one by one with a sense of accomplishment, and a strange sense of security penetrated her whole body. As if these flowers and plants conveyed her feelings, so that Enron successfully captured this mysterious realm, they will also have a sense of security. As soon as they enter the soil, the flowers will feel peaceful and no longer rootless. The drifting driftwood feels down to earth. Feeling this sense of security, Enron somehow ran to the edge of the sink, took a cup of dusky water, and poured these flowers and plants. Now, she felt more than just a sense of security, she also felt a weird joy. However, this feeling is very faint, just like a white paper, gently brushed with a white paint, a short while in Enron's mind fleeting. Coupled with her recent forgetfulness, as soon as her inner feelings disappeared, she never looked into it again. After settling the flowers and herbs and avocado, Enron looked outside the doctor's office on the 5th floor. The doctors who had been let out and killed by her earlier, Enron thought about it and moved the doll and Chen Jiao's son to it. Came inside the doctor's office and placed it under her avocado pot. Then the potted plants with green dill, rich bamboo, powder snow mountain, eustema, lily, etc. were enclosed in a circle around the two children. Chapter 53, Zombies Can't Speak. This torture made Enron seem a bit nervous, but a normal person, after encountering this series of changes, and the whole world has become a monster, she can still be a normal thinking person. All right. Enron knows that what she is doing now is very similar to neuropathy. Although she doesn't know what the use of potted plants to surround the doll and Chen Jiao's son is, but doing so will make her very comfortable. She feels that she has put her child in a pile of flowers and plants. Just as safe. I found a new home for the doll and Chen Jiao's son. Enron took advantage of the gap between the two children to fall asleep again, ran to the 4th floor to kill the zombies, and slowly touched the door of Hu Fang's ward, and rang gently. The door. There was no sound inside, and Enron didn't dare knock the door too loudly. Although some zombies were killed by her in the corridor on the 4th floor, there were still a few zombies moving behind the nurse's station. What? Zombies seem to come out constantly. Inan pressed against the door of Hu Fang's ward, twisted the door handle, and was locked inside. Open the door, I'm 16 bed Enron. She yelled outside the door, watching the zombies in the distance hear the sound of swimming. Enron held her breath, and calculated the time of her escape. If the door could not be opened within 5 seconds, the first zombies would be will touch you. As soon as she lost her voice, she heard the door handle twisting inside the ward door, but a female voice interrupted the opening of the door. "Don't drive, there are zombies outside, this must be a trap, 16 beds have been eaten by zombies long ago." It was Chen Jiao who said this. Enron ears against the door, raised her eyebrows and listened. Her heart was funny. When did Chen Jiao climb back to the 4th floor? According to Chen Jiao, she thought that the zombie could still speak, or did she intentionally not open the door to Enron? Zombies can't speak. Hu Frame inside the door opened his mouth, and it was necessary to unscrew the door handle. Chen Jiao seemed to stop it. The two people inside the door quarreled. Inan turned sharply, killing a pair of scissors near the zombies behind him, and then opened his hands. He raised his hand, and slammed the door vigorously, yelling, "Chen Jiao, you open the door for me, do you want your son? I have found your son. If you don't open the door for me, I will throw your son to the zombie and eat it." The door was quiet for a moment. Chen Jiao didn't speak, but several zombies near the door were all led by Enron. She hurried away a long distance, silently watching the nearby zombies were going to the ward. The door swelled. Enron stabbed a zombie to his hands, followed quietly behind a zombie, and started an assassination. "Enron, where is my son? Have you found my son?" The door seemed to fight, and a series of sounds came from Soso. In this series of sounds that attracted zombies, Hu framed his throat and shouted in the door. Enron killed behind the door surrounded by zombies. The zombies were killed so much that Hu frames were ignored. In the ward, Hu frame, who was able to stand up and move around at this time, was arguing with Chen Jiao. The incision on her abdomen obviously still hurt her, so in the face of Chen Jiao's obstruction, Hu frame seemed a bit helpless. The Enron on the 16th bed was originally spooky. "Do you know if she wants to trick us to open the door for her? Then eat all our food? Don't forget, she also forced me to skip the building with a knife." Before Chen Jiao's words came out from the door. Chapter 54, I am looking for my son. But I want to know the life and death of my son. Hu framed his knife on his belly and shoved Chen Jiao. When Chen Jiao insisted not to open the door to Enron, Hu framed, "And you, yourself just don't care about your son, I'm looking for my son." The two quarreled inside the door and attracted the attention of the zombies very smoothly. Enron did not kill the zombies behind the zombies too much, and then just as Enron was about to solve the zombies in this floor, the door was suddenly opened. The inside of the door seemed to have defeated Chen Jiao's Hu frame. It was horrifying and frightening. He looked at the zombie who was walking outside the door. Before she could scream and make any reaction, the back of the zombie was cut with scissors, a fair hand, and the zombie's head in front of Hu frame was pulled away. Stepped on the ground and stared at him, revealing Enron's blood-stained face. "Ah!" Chen Jiao flounced over, pushed Hu frame open, and pushed Hu frame to the ground. She closed the door with a swift movement, locked it, and shouted in the door, "Enran, you pervert, you kill again, you are a pervert, do you still want to come in and kill us?" Enron outside the door, the expression on his face is indeed a little embarrassed. Whoever cut all the zombies' heads in the 4 or 5 or 2-story building, and encountered such 2-second force characters, can still show a smile like Mu Chunfeng, who stands up and speaks. Turning her back, looking at the zombies in a place without any explanation, she silently began to pick up the diamonds on the ground, and she suddenly realized that there is a truth, that is, there may be many times when the human encounter is different cognitions will lead to different realms. People like her and Chen Jiao are not living in a realm at all. She is trying to recognize this doomsday new world, but Chen Jiao and Hu Feng are still hiding in such a small ward. In order to be so careful, they are not all the way, and no explanation is needed. It's really boring. In the ward, under the grumbling of Chen Jiao and various offensive campaigns to publicize how Enron was cruel and hard, Hu Frame did not argue anymore, only her wailing cry left. Enron collected all the diamonds on the ground, and it was already a bit dull. The medical scissors floated back to the 5th floor to see the doll and Chen Jiao's son. The flowers in the pot still bloom beautifully, just like the avocado. There is no change, the natural growth of the plant is relatively slow, and Enron does not use the power to promote them, they can only grow according to the laws of nature. I just had a little dew on the petals, the powder snow mountain and Eustema, head to head, and some tilted towards the doll. It seemed to feel Enran's attitude and wanted to guard the doll's posture. Enran smiled, held her awake, vomited the pacifier, but did not cry. He hummed the baby who didn't know what to say, fed her some breast milk, and found a brand new bottle that had not been opened. Get the baby some mineral water to drink. Mineral water. Enran collected a total of 3 boxes. When killing zombies on the 4th floor before, because of fear of sudden conditions, Enran transferred the collected materials to the doctor's office on the 5th floor. Chapter 55, Such Inability. The room in the doctor's office is full of light. Compared with the dark and aggressive blue light room, and the aggressive internal passage, it makes people feel much more comfortable. Enran doesn't like dark places now. She likes sunshine, rain, and dew. Say that the 3 big boxes of mineral water did not drink, and only a small amount of 2 occasional drinks for the baby, and the rest was prepared to be milked by Chen Jiao's son. After all, the child has been drinking milk soaked in normal saline, which is also harmful to the body. Not good. Enron couldn't help it a few days ago. Now that I have found mineral water, I still need to use mineral water to make milk for Chen Jiao's son. After the baby drank a few sips of water, Enron put the pacifier back into the baby's mouth, left the doll and flowers and plants in the doctor's office on the 5th floor, and carried the fruit basket containing Chen Jiao's son, and went down to the 5th floor. At the door of Hu Feng and Chen Jiao's ward. The people inside listen to me, the zombies outside have been killed by me. Chen Jiao, your son, I will leave you at the door of the room. I'll pack them if you want, milk powder, diapers and small clothes. A big bag, put it all by your son, take care of it yourself. Shouting at the door, seeing that there was still nothing moving in the door, Enran turned and left. For her, she can be said to be our mother or she is cruel, but in any case, she must consider real situation. It's still very troublesome for a person to take 2 children and walk in the last days. The most obvious thing is that she can't take care of it at all. 10 days have passed, and Enron's time to sleep every day, does it add up to 3 hours? It's hard to say. Of course, after spending so many days with her, she also has a little affection for Chen Jiao's son, so she packed up a lot of supplies for the baby to use for Chen Jiao. Although Chen Jiao is really annoying, but the child is so innocent, his son must bring your own, Chen Jiao's son is Chen Jiao's responsibility. Enran could not help Chen Jiao to raise a son. He was already exhausted. He would take care of Chen Jiao's son and her own daughter, and the Virgin would not do such a thing. Wait for Enron. Just as Enron turned his back to leave, the door of the ward was suddenly opened. Hu Frame stood inside the door, looked at Enron, and eagerly asked, Enron, you have seen my son? Enron, is there? Enron was silent, slowly, turning half of her body in a zombie corpse, watching Hu Frame's not talking. The problem she had thought about came to mind again. It was time to tell Hu Frames that her son had become zombies, or were they eaten? She was hesitating. In fact, Enron was still very kind. She could see that Hu Feng actually wanted to go out with her for help, but there was no way. Hu Feng was a cesarean section and couldn't move in bed. There was no way for her at the critical moment. Ran to stop the zombie from eating his son. Sometimes, this result is actually difficult for a mother to accept. It is clear that her child has not become a zombie, and there is still rescue. As long as you work hard, you can save your child. As a mother, for your own children, you cannot be afraid of death, or your children will not be saved. What you are afraid of is your inaction, your own helplessness, and your own eyes watching the child in danger, but you can do nothing. Such inability will make a mother go directly to hell. Chapter 56, I can't support him. Enron didn't speak, and Who Frames widened his unbelievable eyes. The eyes quickly became red. She shook her head, ignored the body in one place, ignored everything, looked at Enron, kept shaking her head, and then crying and turning his back, he lay on his bed and burst into tears. No need to say anything, do NT say anything, do NT say anything. The answer that should have been known has been guessed a long time ago. Who Frame did not want to know the process. She only knew that her son was dead. Crying and crying, Chen Jiao's son at the door seemed to know that Enron was about to discard him. He woke up from his sleep, opened his mouth and cried, and stretched out two little hands to dance in the fruit basket. Loud cries rang through the entire obstetrics corridor on the 4th floor, making the scene of a dead zombie more hellish bloody. Standing safely a few steps away, looking at the door of the ward, Chen Jiao the face was tangled, but there was no movement. There was an urge to take Chen Jiao's son back. This child is too small. It was only 10 days since he was born. If he was told to follow Chen Jiao, it would be difficult to walk out of the hospital alive, but the child followed her, and Enron could only give him and milk. Anyway, in such a weird world, it is always better for children to drink breast milk than to drink milk. And Enron took the two children alone, and really could NT bring them. The tiredness was second. The key was danger. After the baby cried, the son of Chen Jiao cried, and the son of Chen Jiao cried after the baby cried. I'm really afraid that one day, when she is exhausted, she will be besieged by zombies. Not only will Chen Jiao's son not survive, she will not survive like her baby. When Enron hesitated, Who Framed on the bed crying, sitting with tears on his face, sitting up, looking at Chen Jiao, choking and asking. Your son is crying, don't you care? Chen Jiao is still in her pink pajamas. She has been cleaned to the utmost degree except for some stains that she can't take off. She struggles to bite her lip, looks at Enron struggling, her eyes are a little red, wronged and stubborn. I can't support him. This child was not born by myself. I thought he had died on the 5th floor. The implication was that Enron was troublesome and rescued her son? I can't support him, either. My own children can't take care of me. Why are you so kind and care for your son? Enron raised her eyebrows and stunned Chen Jiao with anger. She and Chen Jiao both started at the same starting point. Even at the beginning, she was not as good as Chen Jiao. How many relatives and friends regard Chen Jiao as a treasure? Chen Jiao's starting point is higher than Enron, and I don't know how many grades. But Enron has never given up the flesh that fell from her body. Chen Jiao wants to give up. That's Chen Jiao's freedom. But why should she push the responsibility of raising her son to Enron? Because of Enron's troubles, she rescued her son from the 5th floor? Isn't this true in the world? I can't feed, I really can't feed. In the child's crying, Chen Jiao seemed to be in a very emotional mood. She couldn't help but shouted at Enron, shouting, and she even cried. That was her biological son, even if it was anyhow hard-hearted as iron, Chen Jiao will be uncomfortable. Chapter 57, Xiao Huan. Chen Jiao is not a cold-hearted person. She and Who Frame were trapped in the obstetrics these days. Although she didn't say anything, she was looking forward to the rescue every day. She hoped to see her son, again in sorrow since then, how to live with her son. Human nature is complicated. Chen Jiao knows how much she weighs, a few kilograms or two. She is hardly able to survive in the last days alone, let alone bring a son. And Enron, although Chen Jiao does not want to admit it, she had the courage she had seen, and the person who could crawl out of the corpse's feet was not comparable to Chen Jiao. Enron must be able to bring a good child, and he already has a daughter, why can't he bring one more? Chen Jiao thinks her son is very good to raise, and does not need to eat the food of adults, just drink milk. As a matter of course, she dumped her son on Enron so that Enron hadn't even got angry, and 17 Who Frames jumped up and yelled at Chen Jiao insanely, "Okay. Can you support me? Anyway, my own son is gone, and from now on, your son will be mine, my son." Having said that, in the Enron's solitude, Hu Frame came to the door and carefully hugged Chen Jiao's son from the fruit basket. 2 hot tears slipped down her face, and she looked down at Huai lovingly. The little man here murmured, "Good, Wen Wen, my obedient man, Xia Huan obedient, mother is here, mother is here." He Wen, it was probably the name given by her family before her son was born. Enran was a little bit sad, looking at the frame inside the door, and crying and smiling hugging Chen Jiao's son. "Oh no," He Wen, sat back on his bed, lifted his clothes, and exposed his swollen chest. "Come out and start feeding Xiao Huan. As long as Hu is able to move a little these days, he will use his breast pump to prepare his breast milk to prevent breast milk from going back, so it has been more than 10 days since the accident happened in this hospital. The frames still have breast milk." Enron outside the door, watching Hu Frames crying while feeding Hu Wen, and she felt relieved at once, so that's all right. Ha Wen has been drinking milk soaked in normal saline, but it's actually not good. Enron has been guilty these days. If Wen did not drink breast milk, would he have indigestion? But her breast milk was enough to satisfy a child of the doll, and she didn't give much drink to Hu Wen. I looked at Chen Jiao sitting on the 18th bed with her face full of silence and sitting down on the bed, looking at her. It seemed that Ha Wen had taken over and was relieved. Enran increasingly looked down on this woman and did not want to communicate with this Chen Jiao anymore. She turned and returned to the doctor's office on the 5th floor. All the zombies on the 4th floor and the 5th floor were killed by Enron. She didn't know how fast others were killing zombies. Anyway, all the zombies on the 4th floor and the 5th floor added up more than 100 or 2. Let's kill these zombies. It took almost 10 days. For more than 10 days, it was quite fast for her. On the 4th floor, there were plenty of supplies for grown ups to eat. For the time being, it didn't matter that Enron would support it for a few days. She put the rest of her energy on cleaning up the corpse, giving birth to Avocado, and caring for the baby. The zombies on the 5th floor are much more than the zombies on the 4th floor. After all, in addition to the babies in the neonatal department, a considerable number of family members of the babies are gathered. After these family members were killed safely, the corpses were stacked outside the 5th floor. Will rot, grow mold, or smell. Chapter 58, Solving the Food Crisis. For the cleanliness of the 5th floor, when Enron is okay, she will drag the zombie on the 5th floor to the window, and then throw the window on the 5th floor. She wants to make the doll a better living surroundings. When I was full, Enron would give birth to avocados. After the rest of the flowers and plants had entered the flower pot, they were able to survive on their own. Enron ignored them. Now the main thing is to concentrate the abilities and give birth to avocados. After all, no matter how much food there is on the 4th floor, there are always times when the food is finished. The doll is still small, and Enron has been thinking about how to go to the outside world to survive with such a small child. After all, look at the scene outside the window. It seemed that everyone near the hospital had become a zombie. She has been in a mess all these days, some confused, some barn rushes, some despair, but for the baby, she can't give up hope. So Enron worked very hard to solve the food crisis. As long as the food problem was solved, she felt that she could live with the baby for several years in this hospital. Only Enron felt a little strange. The energy in the green tendons on the back of her hands was more than enough to give birth to those flowers and plants. With one use of energy, the flowers and plants in a flower pot could spread and spread, but she wanted the avocado to give her. It is more difficult to bear a large fruit. Is it because fruit trees are more difficult to spawn? She has urged the avocado tree about 3 or 4 times in the past 2 days, but every time she grows this avocado tree in a flower pot, she only gives her a little bit, and she doesn't know if there is a centimeter. Enron was a little decadent, sitting in a circle of flowers and grass, watching the avocado seedlings less than half a meter worried, and the baby's baby basket was next to him. At this time, the baby was waking up, with soothing in his mouth. A pacifier, with eyes wide open in a baby basket, don't know what to look at. Footsteps rang outside the office door. Enron sat cross-legged on the ground, looked up, and saw Hu Frame holding Hu Wen, standing embarrassed outside the door, so Enron asked strangely. What's wrong? Anything? Chen Jiao thinks that the text is too noisy, so I hugged it. Hu Frame shook the Huwen in her arms. Just now Huwen was urinating, but the fart was uncomfortable, so she kept crying downstairs. Chen Jiao was a little impatient, and let Hu Frame go out holding Huwen. In fact, Ha Wen is very coquettish. After eating and drinking, he walked around and fell asleep, but since Hu Frame has already gone upstairs, then talked to Enran. Now in these 2 floors, there are only left after so many living people, she had no topic with Chen Jiao, and her heart was dull and panic. Naturally, she could only talk to Enran. What kind of person do you say, Chen Jiao? Enran stood up awkwardly, crossed a large cluster of green dill, walked to Hu Frame, looked at Xiao Huan, her face was rosy and her lips were natural, she was relieved and laughed. It's really good to eat breast milk. This child has been with me for so many days and was aggrieved. In fact, I have always given Han a saline-soaked milk. I am really worried that he will eat his belly. Can't say that. If it wasn't for you, he might have starved to death earlier. This is also no way out. Ha Wen can still drink milk, which is already a blessing in misfortune. Chapter 59, Go to the 6th floor Pediatrics. Holding Hu Wen's Hu Frame, with a smile on her face and faint heartache, she knew that the child in her arms was not her own, but these days, she also worked very hard when He Wen was born. This takes time, and obviously this is not a fact that 1 day or 2 can completely forget. Enran didn't talk anymore. She dropped her eyes. Now I really do not know what to say. What she has to say is, for example, forgetting the child who has nothing to do with Hu Frame. In the future, only Dangwen is her own. For example, Hu Frames themselves understand these words. Looking at Hu Frames, they are also trying to forget the child. By the way, what can I do for you? The atmosphere was a little silent. Hu Frame asked very politely. She took a deep breath, looked around for a while holding Hu Wen, and saw that Enran didn't answer, and looked with the lush greenery and flowers growing in the circle behind Enran. He asked strangely, these flowers and green dill grow well, why do they grow so well? Enran turned back, glanced down at Hu Fang, then turned his head again, watching Hu Fang shrugged his shoulders. He didn't explain these things directly, just as if incidentally, said. Yeah, it's very nice and beautiful. It wasn't what she wanted to hide from Hu Frames, but what happened to her. She hadn't figured it out herself, and she said that she was afraid that Hu Frames would look at her like a monster, like Chen Jiao. In such a large hospital with only a few live mouths, Enron felt very boring when being watched by 2 people of the same age every day. Then, Enron said to Hu Frame, I'm going to clean up the 5th floor and then go to the 6th floor. The 6th floor is pediatrics, where the children are older. When they come to the hospital, they usually only have 1 or 2 accompanying family members. The day has not yet dawned. It is better to go to the 6th floor than to the 3rd floor obstetrics department. The head of the obstetrics department is estimated to be several times more than the head of the neonatal department on the 5th floor. This estimate is also because every time Enron comes back to this hospital for prenatal examinations, no matter how early you get up, how early you come, they often get the horns after 1 or 200, and some pregnant women's families, in order to let pregnant women get checked early, very early, and ran to the hospital to get their numbers before dawn. Especially in the past few years, the state has opened up second and third births. After each family is allowed to have more than 2 children, the number of pregnant women has increased sharply. Obstetric check UPS often have a lot of people from 4 or 5 o'clock. A pregnant woman who comes to the hospital usually takes a husband, a mother-in-law or mother, and even more, the mother-in-law and her husband, the nanny, and the nanny all bring them, a pregnant woman. A turn around the obstetric inspection department can shock the whole family. Not to mention that this is still a large, well-known maternal and child health specialist hospital, and the obstetrics department is overcrowded. Where is the overcrowding? When the metamorphosis came, it should be about midnight, close to the morning, but the day was not yet bright. At what time did Enron not know? She recalled that the night before the last day, the doctors and nurses were normal, and their steps were normal. I was so busy flying that I said that a mother was going to be admitted to the hospital immediately, and then I said that whoever is going to give birth immediately. Anyway, the obstetric department did not stop all night. From this, you can imagine how many zombies will come to register for registration, which is also one of the most important reasons for Enron to go to the 6th floor pediatrics. Chapter 60, Your Courage. If Enron wants to promote the avocado seedlings quickly, you must eat it hard. The more you eat, the better. But there is nothing suitable for her on the 5th floor. In addition to her, there is Chen Jiao on the 4th floor. With Hu Frame, there are only so many supplies, and sooner or later they will be eaten. Therefore, exploring the new supplies on the 6th floor has become a top priority. Enron, you are so brave. Hu Frames looked at Enron with a little envy, and shook gently in his arms. The expression on his face appeared sad again, and sighed, if I could have half of your courage, my child, wouldn't. No. Enron categorically rejected Hu Frame's speculation. This is a devastating disaster. People who can become zombies have changed a long time ago. People who have not become zombies will not change. You come out of the ward earlier, or come out of the ward later, the results are the same. Don't think so much, self-blame will ruin everything for you. Do not regret the decision you have made, otherwise people will not be able to get rid of this regretful mood in their entire lives. At that time, Enron decided to leave the ward. Hu Frame also wanted to follow, but she was a cesarean section. I haven't grown up yet, why are I leaving with Enron? So in order to stop Hu Frames from blame, the meaning in Enron's words is to imply that Hu Frames, her children have become zombies, not eaten by zombies, because only Hu Frames thinks so, you will not live in this regretful mood all your life. And that Chen Jiao is also a personal talent. She was already hanging out of the window on the 3rd floor, and she climbed back to the ward on the 4th floor. Now she gave her son to Hu Frame, and no one like her did. What blame and regret? Enron patted Hu's shoulder again and said to her, aren't you asking me if I need any help? I'm cleaning up the zombies on the 5th floor. I want to throw them all out of the window, and you help me to clean it up. Hu's face hesitated for a moment, thinking of those corpses with blood caves on their heads, and finally nodded, promising to help Enron clean up the 5th floor. Okay, let me find a cot that can sleep for Han first. She wants to grow, and now her life is no longer her life. She still needs to take care of her and raise her. Seeing that the zombies outside the hospital are everywhere, the mobile phone signal is 0, the phone can't make any calls at all. She doesn't touch these bodies today, and she will definitely touch them tomorrow, so Hu Frames agreed. Then she hugged Ha Wen, who was already asleep, and walked out of the doctor's office to find a small bed for Ha Wen. There are beds everywhere in the hospital, and there are several scattered in the aisles on the 5th floor. The kind of small beds that can be pushed, like a dining car, can be used by children as long as they are covered with soft quilts. Hu framed a car over, put Hu Wen in a small bed, and pushed a doll back for him. Then, together with Enron, he found some soft quilts and put them in a crib to sleep with Hu Wen and the baby. Both children fell asleep, and Hu Frame went to drag the bodies of the zombies. She tossed them out of the window, so that Han and the dolls had a slightly cleaner living environment, and Enron took the dull scissors, went to the pediatrics on the 6th floor.